Greetings and salutations. I'm the fallen angel Christopher Daniels.
Hello, yes, Danhausen here to tell you, deliver a very nice, very evil message, if you will.
This is NXT superstar Dexter Lumis.
What's up, everybody? It's me, your buddy, your pal, Scott Stanford.
Hey, this is Big Sexy Kevin Nash.
This is the former intellectual savior of the masses, now known as Aaron Stevens, your NWA third-degree national champion.
This is Dr. Britt Baker, DMD, the role model, and you are listening to Greg Morgan with Good Mic Work Commentaries.
And I want to tell you, Greg, your buddy Howie, also known as Wheezy, as you call him, he told me all about your channel. I'm here to tell everybody that I've seen it, I've watched it, I've looked at it. I went down the rabbit hole and I couldn't get out of it. It was so good.
Yeah, you better watch this channel. You better watch all the videos.
I'm about to go and watch a few videos myself.
Watch them 5 times a piece. That's right, I said 5 times a piece. Do it. I know you've been a fan for like 40 years. I've only been doing it for 30, so I guess we're fans together there for 10 of it. Do it.
He's not going to fill your head with bullshit. He's going to tell you real deal, what's up, and that's that.
Do it!
Good Mic Work is the place to be for all your wrestling information, guaranteed.
The best wrestling content is right here at Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Check out Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Check out Good Mic Work Commentaries on YouTube.
Subscribe, share, love, like, poke, whatever you need to do.
If you don't, we're gonna have a problem.
Love that, Danhausen. Love that Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Do it now.
You're welcome.
Big weekend, big weekend. What's going on, guys? Welcome to your Winged Eagle podcast for March 6th, 2021. We are here to talk about a lot. This one's loaded. We are, of course, on AEW Revolution weekend. That pay-per-view is coming up tomorrow night, and we're here to predict that whole thing, along with getting into a lot of wrestling news and results and ideas and speculation. We're also going to pay our respects to Jim Crockett Jr., who passed away this week, speculate on who AEW's big new signee is. We're going to talk about the Wednesday night shows with some great action on Wednesday, especially the Shaquille O'Neal and Jade Cargill match against Red Velvet and Cody Rhodes. NXT was very interesting this week, as well as we do have a lot of rumors about it. NXT heading into the WrestleMania week, including women's tag team titles possibly on the horizon, and NXT even switching nights. We have got Smackdown to get into from last night. We've got our main event set for Fastlane, Daniel Bryan versus Roman Reigns, and all sorts of other great, exciting stuff as well. So this is going to be a jam-packed, loaded podcast today. Hope you guys are doing great today on this Saturday afternoon. Let me give myself a quick sound check, make sure. All right, we're up and running, and we're all good to go. I appreciate you guys hanging out and waiting for me here in the chat, those of you who are here already, and we are going to be kicking off another 3 consecutive days of streaming. Of course, we're up here right now for the Winged Eagle. Tomorrow, immediately following Revolution, we'll be up here live for a full show review. And then, of course, on Monday, I'll be up here as always for a Raw review. You will be getting 3 consecutive streams from me every single weekend between now and WrestleMania coming up next month. And next week, we're going to be doing, instead of pay-per-view review on Sunday, we're going to be doing a watch-along of another classic WrestleMania. I will let you guys know which WrestleMania we're going to do this coming Monday on the Monday Night Raw review. So keep a lookout for that. But you're going to get me Saturday, Sunday, Monday, every single week between now and WrestleMania. It's going to be a kick-ass effing time. So anywho, hope you guys are all doing okay. We're not going to waste too much time today because we have a lot to get into, including news, results, and of course, we do have to predict the massive pay-per-view tomorrow that could potentially have some pretty crazy stuff go down on it. Of course, we have a big exploding barbed wire death match that's supposed to take place between Jon Moxley and Kenny Omega, and AEW's big announcement, and we're going to have a ton of fun speculating about whoever that is here. And we might have gotten a couple of clues today. A big tweet from a Hall of Fame wrestler came out today about 6 to 8 hours ago, and that could clue us in, or it could be a red herring. We don't know. Either way, it's always so much fun to speculate about stuff like this and, find out, how close we were, if we were way off base or whatever. But we got a lot of clues. We got a lot to think about in terms of that. So that should be some fun stuff as well. I do want to say hello to everybody that is here in the chat already. Good to see you in here. Melissa was the very first one. We got Jet the Hawk and Nate and Ben and Jan. We got George Morris chiming in with $5 super chat. Hey, Greg, how are you doing? I just adopted another cat, all black girl named Bree. I now have 4 cats, and everyone was farting at PetSmart. Well, I mean, when you go into PetSmart, what else are you supposed to do? I mean, I know when I go in there, I just rip huge big ones. So yeah, everybody's farting because why wouldn't you? But good to see you in here again, George, and congrats on the new cat. I'm a cat guy myself. And watch out for them girls. Girls are crazy. Devlin Husbands here. What's going on, man? Appreciate the 5. Good to see you here. Greetings from Hawaii. Let's go. I'm actually somewhat excited for AEW Revolution. The go-home show was actually really good. It was. Wednesday was good. And it was kind of like sentimental in a way, too. I felt like we had just a shade or kind of a cloud of Jim Crockett kind of over that show, especially with like Tully getting in the ring for the first time in 30 years. We had JJ Dillon at ringside, which I marked out for that match. And of course, that I believe that was the day that we found out that Jim Crockett had passed away. So it was a really good show, good, closing show brawl to end the show. Really good way to always end, go home pay-per-views. And I cannot freaking believe how good Shaquille O'Neal and Jade Cargill versus Cody Rhodes and Red Velvet was. I mean, on paper, this thing was supposed to be bowling shoe ugly, as Jim Ross would say, but it was anything but. And Shaq held his own and almost brought a tear to my eye with the Brody Lee tribute. You got to be fucking kidding me. And Jade Cargill, she's a star. She is an absolute star. I mean, this is her, pretty much her first match in the ring. Wasn't perfect by any means, but holy shit, did she show a lot of potential. How someone like her slipped through the fingers or didn't catch the eye of WWE and they didn't throw a whole bunch of money at her to come into their developmental system is beyond me. But she is quite good for someone with as little experience as she has. And, physically, they don't get any better looking than her. She is absolutely just chiseled out of fucking granite. So really good outing for her. I was really pleasantly surprised with that match, and I can't wait to talk about that later on. Good to see you as well, Steven Scott. Appreciate the $10, man. Thank you so much. Hey, good mic work. I was watching the WrestleMania 17 watch along. Also, Bull Buchanan was a member of the Truth Commission in 97, and you have to do SummerSlam 91 for the summer. That would be a fun one to do, Brett and Perfect. SummerSlam 91. I will keep that in mind this summer. We'll do a watch along on that one. And yeah, I remember Bull Buchanan being in the Truth Commission. He was there. And thank you to everyone who was here last week watching WrestleMania 17 with us. That was a blast. We're going to do it again next Sunday, 1 week from tomorrow on the 14th. We're going to do another watch along of a classic WrestleMania. I've got it narrowed down. You guys threw me some pretty good options and suggestions, and I think I know what I'm going to do, but I'm going to let you guys know exactly what we're going to do on Monday. So you got to tune into the Raw review this Monday to find out which WrestleMania we'll be watching next weekend. Thank you for another one. That's you, right? Yeah, Devlin with another 5, making sure I just didn't reread the same one. Appreciate that again, brother. Also, Jade Cargill's a star in development. Very great debut match. Yeah, I literally just said the same thing. She really impressed because, obviously from a physical standpoint, the first time we saw her, we were like, our jaws dropped. I'm like, who is she? Holy crap. I didn't think that she was going to be that good in the ring. I thought like she has potential to be awesome, but I didn't think she'd get in there and kick ass the way she did. She threw a very Arn Anderson-like spine buster in there too. I think a lot of people have really been working with her a lot, and I think she even used the Glam Slam as her finisher. So she looked good. A couple of issues there. I think she took way too long to set that table up at one point, but that's stuff that's, you're just going to get better at as you go and gain experience. So for your first outing ever in your debut match, I don't think it could have gone any better for Jade Cargill. So that was a really pleasant surprise for me. Good to see you, Isaac Roa. Thank you very much, man. Appreciate the 5. Hey, Greg, do you think that with how much Cameron Grimes keeps mentioning Ted DiBiase that they'll do a segment with him and Cameron Grimes? I hope so. Bring Ted DiBiase in. Why not? I got to look up and do some research on Ted DiBiase. I don't know what the latest with him is. Last time I remember bringing his name up, there was some legal troubles going on with him and his family. I don't know the latest on that or the details, but provided Ted is healthy, available, and all is good in his life, would love to see some sort of a throwback there with Ted DiBiase and Cameron Grimes, because I'm loving me some Cameron Grimes, and he picked up a big win on NXT this past Wednesday as well. Also good to see Josh in here and Sonic Plays and Mr. E and all y'all. So hopefully we'll have a somewhat decent audience today because like I said, there's tons to get into. Should be a good solid 2-hour podcast today with everything we're going to talk about. Just to give you an idea of the rundown of the order in which we're going to do stuff, I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a schedule update here in the beginning. I want to shout out the Patreon supporters. Then we're going to just kick it off with some fun. We're going to really speculate hard on who AEW's big signee is. So I think we'll kick off with that because that should be a lot of fun to talk about. After that, we will pay tribute to Jim Crockett Jr., who passed away this week. After that, I'll probably get into last night's Smackdown, or after the Jim Crockett stuff, we'll get into wrestling news like WrestleMania week schedule, which is looking huge. I'm going to be up here like 6 straight days streaming on WrestleMania week, so that's going to be a blast. We've got some NXT rumors to talk about, and no more thigh slapping in WWE. What the fuck? Ugh, this company, I swear to God. After that, we'll get into last night's Smackdown a little bit. Not the greatest show last night. I wasn't that enamored with Smackdown, but we did have the main event for Fastlane set with Daniel Bryan picking up the win in the cage over Jey Uso. And I've got a few comments, updated comments on the Apollo Crews situation. I've slightly changed my tune from last week. Loved it last week. Lukewarm to it this week, and I'll explain why. After that, we'll probably get into the Wednesday night stuff as well. Talk about NXT and AEW, get into the ratings there, and talk about heading into Revolution for the go-home AEW. And then after that, the final thing we'll do is predict the entire Revolution card, which including the buy-in, it looks like I've got 3, 6, 9 matches, including 2, I believe, on the buy-in. So it looks like a 7-match main card there. Should be a blast tomorrow night. I'll be up here watching it and live tweeting. So please shoot me a follow over on Twitter at Good Mic Work and make sure you follow along, and we'll talk about it tomorrow as the pay-per-view goes on. I got to go on Bleacher Report tonight and get that thing ordered and set up and ready for tomorrow. I am excited because I'm off and I want to watch some wrestling tomorrow. So that's kind of what's on tap here for this podcast. It's going to be loaded, as you can tell. Let's get into it, man. Let's just start this stuff because I really want to get into some of the speculation. But the first thing I want to do is shout out all of our awesome supporters and current supporters on the Patreon page. If you would like to support the channel in any way, you can do that. Link is in the description below if you want to head over to the Patreon page. Otherwise, I just want your view and I want your like. Please smash that like button. I would very much appreciate it. But I want to thank and welcome brand new Patreon supporter Darren Piper. I see your name pop up every now and then on Twitter, I believe. So thank you for the support, my man. Also, Nikita Abalakin, Chris Miner and Super Fluffy Toaster, Deshaun Robinson, J Smooth 1999, Martin Can, Alex Dredge, Apron Bump Podcast, Alan Carter, Michael Tong, Brandon Yelverton, Nick Musser, Jimmy Anderson, who's always here as well, K-Dogs Kennel, Ryan Y, Devlin Husband, John Redifer, Claudio Clavidetster, Daniel Rodriguez, Barry MK, who's probably going to be hanging around as well. I need some monkey wrenches in there. Josiah Blevins, Mr. Steve, Scott Moss, John Riffle, Michael Cuomo, Naveed, Keith Salyers, Blake Moran, and Nathan Walker. As always, I appreciate all of your support. If you have supported $200 lifetime or you have a $10 or more a month pledge, your name is also shouted out in the description below. So I want to thank you all very much, as always, for your support. Like I said, big weekend right now. We'll be up here tomorrow night immediately following Revolution for a review, and I'll be up here Monday for a Raw review as well. Next week, same thing. Winged Eagle. Next Sunday, week from tomorrow, big WrestleMania watch-along, classic WrestleMania watch-along. That's going to be fun. I'll let you guys know which WrestleMania we're going to do this coming Monday. And then, of course, a week from this Monday, we'll be up here again for the Raw review. There will be 3 consecutive days of streaming every weekend between now and WrestleMania. Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. You're going to see my big bald head. So it's going to be a fun month, and it's going to be a really crazy WrestleMania week schedule. Here's what we've got. I've got my notes for that down here. Here we go. WrestleMania week schedule. So apparently they're going to be doing a takeover on April 8th, a Thursday takeover. And I was wondering that, you know, if they're going to do a takeover in conjunction with WrestleMania, how are they going to do that with Smackdown being on Friday nights and stuff? And of course, WrestleMania being a 2-night event. So it looks like we're going to get AEW and NXT on Wednesday the 7th. We got TakeOver on Thursday, April 8th. We've got the Go Home Smackdown for WrestleMania on Friday the 9th. Then we have the 10th and 11th, Saturday, Sunday, the 2-night event for WrestleMania. And then Monday, the post-WrestleMania Raw. And according to the rumors, NXT is supposed to be moving to Tuesday nights because, you know, there's going to be some scheduling conflicts. I think they're going to have to be bumped off of Wednesday. No confirmation as of yet, at least that I saw on WWE's end. But apparently, word on the streets is the very first night of NXT being on Tuesday will be the Tuesday following WrestleMania. So we're literally going to have about 7 straight days or I think 8 out of 9 days is going to be wrestling every single day. So I will be up here beginning on the Thursday TakeOver review. We'll be up here Thursday, Friday for Smackdown, because I'm going to be off for that as well. We'll come up here and talk about Friday night Smackdown, probably predict the entire WrestleMania card that Friday night as well. I'll be up here Saturday night, and I'll be up here Sunday night and Monday. So that's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. That's going to be 5 straight days of streaming. Potentially even one more, depending on what I decide to do with work. Maybe I'll come up on the Tuesday after that and review the very first NXT on Tuesday. Maybe I'll come up here the week before on Wednesday, which I'm not planning to do currently, but maybe we can, review those shows as well. Because another rumor about NXT is if they do a takeover, they might do a 2-day takeover event as well, with night 1 taking place on their regular time slot of Wednesday, which will actually be their final night on that Wednesday time slot. And then night 2 will be on the WWE Network or Peacock or whatever. So that's the rumors right now. Still no confirmation on any of that, but either way, WrestleMania weekend is going to be loaded. So mark your calendars. If you're here looking at me and you're not subscribed, fucking subscribe. You're going to need to. We're going to be up here a lot, so please do that, and I would appreciate it. And we're going to have a lot to get into. That's for sure. My powers are weak against Bear. Okay, there's the monkey wrenches. All right, cool. We got some help in here. Hey, look, just want to say hello as well to Luigi the Raw Gaming. Appreciate the $3, man. Can you imagine a Bianca and Jade tag team? I'm imagining it now. That would be crazy. That is some extreme strength in there. And Bianca, of course, I always thought like Jade, has the look. Bianca has the actual athleticism and the actual power, but that might not be the case. Jade Cargill looked absolutely amazing on Wednesday night, and I was impressed. Imagine if, I'm glad she's in AEW. I think they need as many strong women as they can get on their roster, and I think the women's division has improved substantially since they began, when it was quite weak, to be honest. So she's a big addition. All of the other all the other cross-promotion girls that have come in have done really well. Thunder Rosa and Serena Deeb and all that. So they've really improved a lot in the women's division, and she is going to do wonders. But can you imagine Jade Cargill in that WWE developmental system, and get into the ring with people like Charlotte and Becky and Asuka? Oh my God, I couldn't even imagine. So she seems like somebody that WWE would push to the moon, and AEW's got her, and apparently they've locked her up long-term. So she is theirs, and I'm happy for her, man. What an outing for her. But we will definitely be getting into that. But before we do, why don't we, instead of saving this for later on for like an hour into the podcast, let's just kick this shit off, because this has been the talk of the wrestling town all week long. AEW apparently is bringing in some big Hall of Fame worthy signing. Now, Paul White appeared on Dynamite. I think this was his first night on TV last week. He appeared on the stage with Tony Schiavone. Very cool, because I remember when the Giant would come out and do interviews with like Mean Gene and Jimmy Hart and Kevin Sullivan back in the day on Nitro, and it was a little bit reminiscent of that. Loved his new shirt. It says "No More BS." And everybody's like marking out for the shirt on Twitter. And of course, dumb Greg is sitting there. I'm like, okay, no more BS. Yeah, okay. Why does everybody think that's so funny? No more bullshit. What's the big deal? Okay, no more BS. We get it. It took me a minute to register. I'm like, oh, BS, Big Show. Oh, I get it now. Reminds me of the time when the Hurt Business gifted MVP with the gold chain that said THB on it. And I'm like, what does THB mean? I sat here for like 5 minutes trying to figure out what THB meant. And I'm like, oh, Hurt Business. So yeah, feel free to unfollow me. But I got a big kick out of that. Really cool shirt. And he's out there on the stage doing the interview with Schiavone, and that's where he makes mention of the big new signee. And he says, at Revolution. Well, he went on to also talk about what he's going to be doing there. We know Paul White has also signed on as a commentator, not only a wrestler, but a commentator as well. And he will be heading up the new Monday night show on YouTube 1 hour before Raw starts every single week. And it's going to be AEW Dark Elevation. And then he goes on to say that at Evolution, he called it Evolution instead of Revolution, he is going to be announcing a huge new signee being brought in by AEW. And he called this person a Hall of Fame caliber or Hall of Fame worthy signee. And they made this a really big deal. They made it sound like it's somebody enormous. And, when they make it sound like it's somebody that big, to me, that really kind of narrows the field down of who it can actually be. But apparently this is going to be a pretty earth-shattering signee. But then again, we've seen some of these big announcements that AEW and TNA used to be guilty of this a little bit too, and it turned out to really be nothing at all, but they really are hyping it up as if it's going to be somebody major. Now, Tony Khan has even gone out of his way to say that it's one of his favorite wrestlers ever. And, that's a very short list as well that consists of Bret Hart, Steve Austin, Chris Jericho, and I think maybe Ric Flair. And a lot of those guys, Ric Flair's got a lifetime contract with WWE. Austin's got the podcast on the network. Bret Hart isn't doing anything, but they also made this signee sound like it wasn't just going to be another legend coming in to be a manager. I'd love to see Bret there to join Tully, to join Arn, to join Jake, to join Taz. Maybe he can form a little new Hart Foundation with Brian Pillman Jr. or something like that. I'd be all for that. But is Bret Hart really a name big enough, considering that he can't wrestle, considering that if he does come in, he's just going to be there as a personality? And don't forget, he's already been there. He awarded, or he brought out I think he unveiled the new AEW title or whatever, about a year and a half ago or so. So he's already been on AEW television before. I don't think he would really be that jaw-dropping, earth-shattering type of signee. As much as I'd love to see Bret there, and I would be totally fine if it was him, they're making it seem like it's bigger. So when you hear stuff like that, and let me go over to some of these tweets that I had, because I was exchanging a couple of comments with Sean Ross Sapp the other day when I was speculating on this. And one of the things that we did find out is that this person has signed a multi-year contract. It is a Hall of Fame caliber signing, and it's one of Tony's favorite wrestlers of all time. And somebody in AEW told Sean that it's going to be shocking in a good way. Well, who the fuck is this? Shocking? The Shockmaster? Maybe it's Fred Ottman. That would be fine with me. Cody can have his uncle back in the company with him. But who would really be shocking in a good way? And, there's so many names that I want to kind of discredit, but I guess you can't really discredit anybody. So let's talk about maybe the top candidates right now for who it could be. Probably the biggest one, as of just a few hours ago, on Kurt Angle's Twitter profile, he uploaded a video of him lacing up his boots, hinting at why would he do that? So he's hinting at the fact that maybe he's getting back in the ring. We also have to remember that AEW has an open slot for that Face of Revolution ladder match at the pay-per-view tomorrow as well. So I don't know if, and you guys have to help me, did Paul White say whoever the signee is going to be in that ladder match? Because if not, that means we got two surprises coming up tomorrow. But if the signee is going to be in the ladder match, then, I don't know how that's going to work. And I don't know when Paul White's announcement is going to come. I don't think it's going to come on the buy-in. Should probably come on the main card. And, when it does, who is it going to be? So let's talk about the main one so far. Kurt Angle now has jumped to the top of my list in terms of who it could probably be based on what he tweeted out today. But then again, maybe they're going to bring Kurt Angle in at a different time, and they've asked him to kind of tweet this out to throw us off. And it's going to be somebody else tomorrow, but then Angle maybe shows up. Because I would like to see Kurt Angle in WWE. I think he regrets, and I think a lot of the fans regret how things wrapped up for him in WWE. And we've talked about that, how WWE they did him a little bit dirty with his retirement. I think they should have treated him better. But then again, he did leave and spent the majority of his career. He was in TNA longer than he was in WWE. So not that should really affect anything, but in WWE's spiteful manner, it's not like they're going to, I don't know if they're going to really roll out the red carpet for him and really give him the send-off worthy of, a Mount Rushmore type of guy when he left him high and dry and went to TNA for 11 years. So, what was their motivation to really treat this guy like an Austin or an Undertaker? And instead they had him just job out to Baron Corbin, and that was it. Very nice Hall of Fame ceremony. Loved his induction and all of that, but I think we all can agree that we have our regrets with the way Kurt Angle retired in WWE. So if he is going to come back for one more match or just kind of end things in his own way, I would love to see him turn up in AEW, because there could be some really interesting, alliances and confrontations and possibly matches that he could have there a little bit before he officially retires. And I got another idea for AEW, which we'll talk about later, about maybe potentially bringing forming some sort of WWE faction. You got the Big Show there. You got Jericho, Miro, Moxley. What if you bring in Angle? What if I guess it would be similar like the Millionaires Club in TNA, but hopefully better. Part of me thinks that they might go in that direction one day and have all these guys say, oh, we're the real stars, and they could be like the heels. It could be like a modern day NWO sort of. But aside from Kurt Angle, another big name is Brock Lesnar. Brock Lesnar is not under contract to WWE. Now, everybody assumes that it's going to take a big chunk of cash for Brock to go over there. I'm not sure what the motivation for Brock would be to go there, especially since WWE has really given him the world. There is literally nothing that Brock Lesnar has to complain about in terms of how WWE has treated him. He has been at the top of the card, the main event. He has been paid millions upon millions upon millions of dollars for working 4 nights a year. He literally doesn't have to lift a finger to do anything. His matches are about 5 or 6 German suplexes. They go about 10 minutes, and he's in the showers. And they pay him more than anybody else on the roster for literally working, 1/20th of the amount of time that they're working. So for him to jump, I mean, Tony Khan would really have to just shell out a lot of money for it to make it worth Brock's while. But you do have to think about him if AEW is really making this seem like it's going to be somebody major, shocking in a good way. Brock being there, he would be pretty dominant, though. I think Brock would have to immediately win the title and probably never lose it. So I have my doubts about Brock. I don't think that it's Brock, but you can't not include him. We got to bring him up. We always have to talk about him. Phil Brooks, CM Punk. Could also be him as well. He went out of his way a couple days ago to do a Twitter Q&A. He goes, hey, I'll take some questions. Also, it's not me. So he just kind of knocked that out right there. Don't ask me if it's going to be me at the pay-per-view. It's not going to be me. But, that doesn't mean jack shit. It could very well be him. He could just be doing that now to throw everybody off as well. So CM Punk, that would be shocking in a good way. And bringing him in would be pretty interesting because of all of the potential promos and matches he could have there. But again, I don't know if CM Punk coming in, if it is CM Punk, I'm not having Paul White announce this. You got to remember, that's another thing you have to take in consideration, is that Paul White is making this announcement. If I'm bringing CM Punk into my organization, it is going to be an unannounced run-in. It is going to be at the end of the show when nobody's expecting it. You know how we saw Shawn Spears come out in the match this week and with a hood on and attack Luchasaurus? If it's something like that where he comes out in a hood and then he just fucking reveals it as the show goes off the air, it's CM Punk, and fade to black type of thing, holy crap, the Twitter would explode. If you have Paul White just announce this in the middle of the show, it just takes away the impact, I think, of the surprise. So I'm kind of ruling out CM Punk as well, because if he does come in, I wanted to see him come in and all out in Chicago in front of that crowd. I don't want to see him do it here, coming out when the Big Show announces him. That would be strange. We've also heard RVD's name tossed around. He definitely is a Hall of Fame caliber opponent, or a Hall of Fame caliber star. And that's another thing you have to think about. Big Show did say Hall of Fame worthy, Hall of Fame caliber. Didn't necessarily say Hall of Famer. So I don't know if that narrows it down at all, but, Punk definitely fits that, and so does RVD. A lot of people have been throwing out Batista's name. Absolutely not. I will shit a live possum if it turns out to be Batista tomorrow, because Batista is still scheduled to go into the WWE Hall of Fame, correct? We've got no word on what they're going to do about the Hall of Fame this year. Still haven't heard jack shit about that. We've still got to Davey Boy Smith and Jushin Liger and a lot of guys in that class, NWO, I believe, that are all supposed to be inducted at some point in the Hall of Fame. And so far, we've heard nothing about that. So even if they don't do the Hall of Fame this year and they put it off yet another year, I still can't see it being Batista. He retired last match against Triple H at WrestleMania. WWE also treated him very well upon his return. Don't see any upside or point to a 50-year-old Batista coming into AEW. No. I vote no on Batista. Hard no. Another person I vote a hard no on is Christian. Another name, everybody was tweeting me this. And it was fun yesterday to do all the speculation, but sometimes I'm like, come on, y'all, think a little bit. So many people are like, oh, it's Christian. I'm like, really? I love Christian, but a couple of things there. Christian does not, as much as Christian's awesome and is a Hall of Fame caliber star, former world champion, the whole deal, he is not a Twitter breaking star. You know what I mean? He's not somebody who's going to come in and the wrestling world's going to go, holy shit, what a huge signing. I don't see him being that guy. Plus, with what's going on WWE, we saw him in the Royal Rumble, big embrace and hug with Edge. We have not seen him back on WWE TV since, but I fully expected and still expect Christian to be involved in some way in the Roman Reigns versus Edge build once we get on the other side of Fastlane. And considering what a evil, horrible douche Roman Reigns is, I can totally see him attacking Christian, some sort of segment where Christian's in the ring and maybe Edge is off that night or something. Roman comes out with Jey Uso. They intimidate him. They beat the fuck out of him. And that just, kind of adds heat and fuel to the angle and the storyline and everything. And plus, if Edge does wind up winning the title at WrestleMania, how is Christian not in that ring with him, giving him a hug and celebrating with him? I still have my doubts if Edge is even going to win the title at WrestleMania, but if he does, how do you not have it be like the Kofi moment when the New Day was there with Kofi? How do you not have Christian involved in that? So I think, even though we haven't seen Christian around on WWE TV since the Royal Rumble, I'd be very surprised if he jumped to AEW 1 month before WrestleMania and 1 month before his best friend and brother is in the main event of that show. So I'm voting no on Christian as well. Can't see it. Here's a fun one that might be, though you talk about heat. What if it's Paul White himself? What if it's Paul White himself? What if he turns heel already? It's kind of been his shtick. He even joked about that on AEW. Oh, you didn't see this turn coming, so we always poke fun at how many times he's turned heel and babyface. I lost track years ago. I don't even know how many times it's been, but what if he turns into that like conceited heel where he says, I'm here to sign my contract. I'm the Hall of Fame caliber star. I'm the guy that's going to change things up here in AEW. Maybe Paul White even enters himself into that ladder match that involves Cody and Lance Archer and a couple other guys. So it could be him, and what a troll move, what a heel move that would be. I'd probably get a kick out of that, but I think the fans would consider that a letdown. And then you got like the second tier of names. You got guys like Aleister Black. Don't know what his deal is with WWE. Thea Trinidad, her no-compete clause is over, so Zelina can technically show up anywhere she wants now if AEW chooses to bring her in. If they do, I would assume that Aleister Black won't be far behind her, even if he's still locked up into his WWE contract. He'll probably just wait it out. If he's been quietly released or something and we don't know about that, maybe he could turn up. But I would also think that if it was anybody, any sort of big surprise that was under contract to WWE, or maybe we didn't know they were released, I think WWE would spoil that. I think they would make an announcement on social media, Aleister Black released or whatever. They would kind of like, they wouldn't want to give AEW the satisfaction of bringing this person in. So I'm voting no on Aleister. Couple of New Japan guys, possibly Jay White. There have been rumors of Jay White leaving New Japan. Him coming in would be awesome. But again, as much as I'd love to see Jay White there, as much as I'd love to see Jay White in NXT, is he really that big of a star to make this such a big deal about? Don't forget, it's supposed to be one of Tony Khan's favorite wrestlers. I can't see Jay White being one of Tony Khan's favorite wrestlers. I think this favorite wrestler is somebody that he grew up watching or used to like back in the day. You could also have a couple of women. What about Trish, Lita, or Tessa? Again, not earth-shattering announcements. Trish would be a big deal, and she'd be fun to come in there and do a couple of matches with some of the women, but I can't see it. Lita, I think she'd have to be, her name, I think she'd have to be Amy if she came in. I think WWE probably owns a trademark to Lita, although I'm not sure. And of course, Tessa Blanchard, who's been rumored to, be in NXT and AEW for quite some time now. She would be an enormous addition to the women's division. I would like to see her in AEW more than NXT at this point, just because I want the women's division to be strong, and they're improving. And the fact that, considering how much talent WWE has, the fact that AEW is even able to make a respectable women's division is pretty awesome. So Tessa would add a lot there. But again, is she a name big enough to live up to the type of hype that they're making this sound like? And that's something that we all have to realize, because some people were just suggesting the most random ass names to me. I'm like, no. Like, look at how they're hyping this. They're making it a big deal on social media. Paul White made this big announcement. They're not going to go through all of this, just to make it RVD. You know what I mean? It's got to be somebody a little bit bigger than that. So your guess is as good as mine. I think somebody like Kazuchika Okada would be awesome. He's working with an injury right now, but if they brought Okada in, holy fucking shit. Okada, Omega, at some point, that would be badass. He could possibly be it, but I don't know. I think my gut right now tells me Kurt Angle. Although if that was the case, it almost seems like Kurt Angle himself spoiled it with the tweet that he sent out today. So I don't know. I'm going to take y'all's suggestion on this. I wanted to get started on this so I can read some of your ideas as we go through the podcast here. And by the time we get to the predictions, maybe we'll have a better idea and try to narrow this down of who it could possibly be. Undertaker is another guy. No, I can't see it being Undertaker. I definitely can't see it being EC3. Mark Calloway has been doing a lot of interviews as Mark Calloway now. If he was ever able to go to another promotion, he'd probably have the best chance to succeed now, because back in the Monday Night Wars, Undertaker, he was loyal to WWE, but also part of the reason for his loyalty is what would WCW have done with him? He couldn't be the Undertaker in WCW. He would have to be Mark Calloway, and he wasn't over as Mark Calloway back then. Now that he's been retired and we've been seeing Undertaker humanized more, doing more interviews, being a regular type of dude, we know his name now, and he's got a family and all this stuff. He could now potentially come in and make an impact. But why? We don't want to see him. We don't want to see him in the ring in WWE. Why would we want to see him in the ring in AEW? Although, who else is there? Sting. What if AEW, of all fucking companies, the one company to give us Undertaker versus Sting is AEW? They could do a cinematic match. We're going to find out what Sting can do tomorrow. He's gotten physical in the ring last couple of weeks, took a powerbomb a couple of weeks ago, dropped someone with a scorpion death drop last week. So he's in there doing stuff, but Sting and Undertaker in the ring, come on, what can that look like? But maybe a cinematic type of match, maybe just like what I had suggested for Undertaker's retirement, just like a face-to-face kind of stare down. But again, with what WWE has done for Taker, would he do Vince McMahon like that? Because I thought I was under the impression that he signed some sort of Legends deal, because when he was booked for StarCast and WWE was like, get your ass into Vince's office, and him and Vince worked out some sort of a deal, I would assume that he's not able to go to AEW. So I'm kind of ruling out Undertaker as well. John Cena, fuck no. Can't see that. Although it could be. And Mark Henry, he's another name that's popped up. Mark Henry would be fine. I got no issue with Mark Henry turning up in AEW, but is that really a shocking in a good way announcement? Is that really one of Tony Khan's favorite wrestlers? Why would Tony lie about that? And why would the AEW talent that talked to Sean say it's shocking in a good way? So shocking in a good way could mean a lot of people. Barry thinks it's Andre the Giant. I mean, hell, imagine if AEW was able to tap into resurrection technology. We could bring back Eddie, we could bring back Owen, bring back Andre. Randy Savage could come back in. Who knows? We'll see who it turns out to be, but I think that the speculation might be more fun than who it actually is. Yeah, and Paige, like, all these names are fine. These are all good ideas for just coming into the company, but based on how AEW is promoting this, it ain't Paige. She's tied up with WWE anyway, so it's not her. Definitely not EC3. Not that these people can't come in. It's just who lives up to the type of hype that they're pushing here. That's the thing you got to remember. So, yeah, Booker T, Bully Ray, again, no, all these guys are great. I can see Booker showing up there. He was on the Jericho Cruise. He can do what he wants, but he still does all the kickoff shows for WWE. Don't really see it being Booker T, but if it was, great. But again, is he a shocking in a good way signing? No, neither is Bully Ray. Neither are any of these people. So really I'm worried, actually slightly worried, that AEW is setting themselves up for a letdown here, that they're going to disappoint the fans by making this sound like such a big deal, and then they just bring out RVD. Nothing against RVD. We're huge RVD fans on this channel. But is he somebody that's really going to shock the world, create a buzz, change the landscape of the wrestling business, which is what they're making this sound like it is? And when you put it and you frame it like that, it narrows it down to about 4 or 5 names of who it could be. Brock Lesnar, CM Punk, Goldberg. It ain't Goldberg. Goldberg's still under contract at WWE, but he did just job in his last match to Drew McIntyre. And AEW has reached out and talked to Goldberg before, but he stuck with WWE, and apparently he's still got a little bit of time left on that deal. So it ain't Goldberg, but he's a name. He's one of the only names that I could think of besides of Brock Lesnar, Punk, Goldberg, Undertaker. Those are the only ones that I can think of that would fit all of the clues we have, especially when it says it was one of Tony Khan's favorite wrestlers of all time. And I know Steve Austin is on that list. Steve Austin probably isn't under any sort of ironclad contract at WWE, but why would he show up there, to create a faction? He'd cut some promos in the ring. That would be awesome. But to get back in the ring, I can't see it. I think Austin is happy doing what he's doing. I'm happy seeing the Broken Skull sessions on the WWE Network. We have a big episode with Randy Orton coming up next month, or this month. Next month or this month. Coming up soon. And that's still all just rolling. So you got to kind of rule Austin out. Jericho's already there. And we talked about Bret Hart a little bit as well. Two more good names there, Hulk Hogan or The Rock. Again, Hogan, no, that would not be shocking in a good way. That would be shocking in a bad way. We don't need to see Hogan there. And plus, isn't he also set to go into the Hall of Fame as well as part of the NWO whenever that happens? And The Rock, The Rock is a guy as well. Jericho name dropped Dwayne Johnson this past Wednesday during the Revolution press conference. But again, you're talking about The Rock, biggest movie star in Hollywood. If he didn't come in and do much in WWE, what's he going to do in AEW? Come in for a match, maybe, okay, fine, but against who? Are they going to give him the title? Can he be called The Rock in AEW? I know that when he went to Hollywood, WWE did work something out with The Rock to where he could use the name, but I don't know how that applies to wrestling. So I'd rather see The Rock than the Dwayne. So Dwayne coming in, I don't know. It would be shocking. It would fit shocking in a good way. It would fit possibly one of Tony Khan's favorite wrestlers of all time. But another clue is that long-term contract thing. So whoever this is makes me think that they're still going to be an active wrestler. And like I said, that just really, really, really narrows it down in terms of who it could really be. Who could still wrestle a little bit, but also be a Hall of Fame caliber opponent. Angle can do a little, of course, so can CM Punk. But whoever it turns out to be, I just hope that it's enjoyable. I hope it's exciting. I hope it's like, oh, this is going to be great. And of these names that we've talked about right here, I think the only people that I would truly mark out for in terms of really, really helping AEW's roster and them compete with WWE and actually be a legitimate threat, it would have to be a Brock, or it would have to possibly be an Okada. Would love to see Okada come in because of the type of matches he could have there and stuff, or a CM Punk. So maybe who I think would be best in terms of the best value would be an Okada. But in terms of name, or CM Punk, but in terms of name recognition, maybe Brock, so I don't know. And if it turns out to be Brett or somebody older, they can just begin a faction or something like that. That's possible as well. Some people have thrown out Kane, but, no, he can't be Kane. He'd have to come in as Mayor Glenn. And is that really an earth-shattering signing? Is that really a changing the landscape signing? No, Kane is he's an old man now. He just kind of comes in and shows his face every now and then, and he's another guy that's going to be very well taken care of in terms of a Hall of Fame induction one day. And I'd hate to see him burn that WWE bridge, especially to go into AEW whenever we've seen Kane as not Kane, it sucked. When he was Staples manager Kane, when he was part of the Authority and all of that, it was terrible. He sucked. Fans didn't want to see him. We hated him. I didn't hate him, but fans did. Every time Kane came out in those slacks, it was just immediately a channel changer. So that ain't going to do it. So it ain't Kane either. All I know is it's fun. This is what makes wrestling fun. I'm not interested in trying to be right or guess this correctly. I like the speculation. I like just to shoot the shit and try to figure out who it's going to be, and then we can all watch it together tomorrow and find out. But I just hope that AEW is not setting themselves up for a letdown here, because aside from some of these big names, based on how they're hyping it up, there's a really good chance it could let us down, because even if it's Tessa, even if it's Jay White, even if it's RVD, even a Kurt Angle, does that really shift the balance of power? I say no. So we'll see. Shocking in a good way is telling. That's what I really want to think about. And I know I wish personally that that WWE wouldn't have trapped Ric Flair, because I know WWE went extremely far out of their way to make sure that AEW, that company, never gets their hands on Ric Flair. And it sucks because Tully is there, Arn is there. They could recreate a Four Horsemen. I think they might already be doing that with Tully's group, because now you got FTR and Sean Spears, who's been off TV for a while. He's back. Would love to see them add a fourth, like a main event caliber guy to create that Four Horsemen, with Tully. Maybe you can even have Cody join it. And now you got Arn and Tully both playing like a dual JJ role. And you can have FTR, Spears, and Cody. Cody and Spears go way back as well. And that would be a really good, well-rounded foursome with your main eventer, your secondary title challenger, like Sean Spears could be a TNT challenger, kind of like Wyndham was or Tully was with U.S. title or something. And then you got your tag team in there, like you did the Andersons back in the day, or like you did Tully and Arn. So with FTR. So I would love to see that. But if Flair was able to come over there, that would be amazing to see Ric Flair back on TNT with Shivani, with Jim Ross, and so many of his, his former stablemates from back in the day. But, even if Flair wasn't under contract and it was Flair, we wouldn't even be that surprised because Flair's just going to go wherever the money is. It's not like Flair is going to offer a ton that's really going to change the landscape of wrestling. You know what I mean? And that's how they're making it sound. So y'all's guess is as good as mine. I don't have a damn clue in the world who this could be. All I know is it's fun to speculate, and I really, really cannot wait tomorrow to find out who this is. And I'm curious when this will fall on the pay-per-view. It might. I don't think it's going to come on the buy-in, but maybe it could. Because if you are going to put this person, this signee, if it turns out to be an active wrestler who can still go, and you put them in that ladder match, because don't forget, we still have a spot empty there. I don't know if these two things are related or not. I don't know if we're going to get a special two surprises. So if this person's going to be in the ladder match, you're going to have to make this announcement relatively early in the show, I would assume, and have them come out there, or maybe the announcement is made right before the ladder match. Maybe everybody is in the ring, and then you bring out this person and they're in it. But, I kind of have my ideas for that ladder match and who's going to win it anyway. And I don't have the mystery entrant winning it at this point, unless it turns out to be somebody very, very major. So if it is good, if Angle or RVD or somebody like that who can still technically wrestle do come in, I'd like to see them in that ladder match, but also maybe like to see those guys in addition. That would be so great if Kurt Angle was lacing up his boots and he turned out to be in the ladder match, but he was not the person that Paul White was referring to. They bring in the big signee and they bring in Kurt Angle. Could be pretty fun. So we'll see. We'll be talking about that more as we get into the predictions. What if it's super crazy? S.A. Rios? That would be fun. We're going to be talking about that as well. Trekopedia about the women's tags based on the finish that we got in that wonky-ass tag match on Wednesday. Definitely looks like they're setting up for that and are probably going to crown those champs at the takeover prior to WrestleMania. That's the word on the street. Man, Mr. Pico's got a great idea. What if it was Bret Hart and he brought in with him, alongside of him, El Dandy? Is El Dandy still alive? I think he is. I think it was Silver King who passed away. I think maybe a couple of the Vianos are passed away as well. Not sure about Super Colo or any of those guys, but El Dandy coming in would be great. See, David Arquette's another guy that I'd love to see come in, but he can't be Paul White's announcement. Although he is a former world champion, that would be funny. Paul White doing a heel turn and trolling us, and just bringing out James Ellsworth or something would be kind of funny for me, but it would be a big letdown. I think a lot of fans would be pissed because that's just what fans do. They get pissed about everything. So if AEW hyped this up like it's going to be a big time signing and it's just used as a vehicle to get Paul White over as a douchey heel and a troll, that would be great. But you got to remember, this guy's got to be on commentary every single Monday as well. So do you want to heel Paul White on commentary? He is going to be color, so he can have a personality like that. But I don't know. I don't know if it's really a good idea for AEW just to, because we poke fun at the Big Show heel turns and stuff, and we have our fun with it, but we also find it incredibly annoying that WWE just can't make up their mind what they want to do with this guy over the years. And I would hate to see AEW continue that trend. Hopefully they have a little bit better use of him than that. So if Paul White is being a troll or whatever, I'd probably personally laugh, but I think the backlash might be a little harsh because there's a lot of people going to be laying down $50 to watch this pay-per-view tomorrow. So you don't want to just give us, Mantar. It's got to be somebody, major. It's got to be a big star like the Goon or Mordecai, somebody like that. You know what I mean? Supernatural 28, thanks for the $2. You're going Okada as the Hall of Fame worthy signing. He's kind of on the top of my list of who I just think like the best one would be. Like I said earlier, I think he would give you the most value. He'd put a main event caliber active star on the roster that's there, not part-time, not semi-retired, not old. Like I said, he is apparently, according to the reports, is working through an injury right now, but he could still come in. And we all know the history between him and Kenny Omega. We had an Onita sighting on the barbed wire death match hype package on Wednesday as well. Love to see Tanahashi turn up. He was on I think he was on the Jericho Appreciation Night or whatever. He did a little video thing as well. So there's plenty of guys, from New Japan, Okada, Tanahashi, Jay White that I'd love to see come in, but I don't know. But yeah, I'm kind of with you at this point in terms of a major signing that kind of fits. The only clue that he doesn't fit in is it's supposed to be one of Tony Khan's favorite wrestlers of all time. Not sure if Okada fits that bill or not. Because if all that's true, then that kind of rules him out. But he fits everything else. Hall of Fame caliber. He would be a major signing. I mean, that's somebody that WWE would like to get their hands on, someone like him. So him coming there would be a big get. And I personally would be okay with it if it was him. But like I said, the way they're hyping it up, it's got to be Brock or Punk or something, you know. So we shall see. We'll talk more about it later on as we get into the predictions and as we talk about the Wednesday night shows here in just a little bit. Devlin Husband, thanks for the $2. Joey Ryan is your new pick. Could you see Joey Ryan is actually advertised for some sort of a women's charity event? What the fuck is that about? My God. Oh, it could be Soulja Boy or Vince. Yeah, I said Vince. That's kind of who I'm hoping. Imagine if Vince McMahon came out there. That would definitely be shocking and maybe even in a good way, especially if Vince entered the ladder match. Holy shit. Chris Miner thinks it's going to be James Ellsworth or Santino Marella. Santino would be fun. Would love to see him turn up in AEW. I could actually see that. What's his real name anyway? He'd go there and do some funny shit. I'd be cool with seeing Santino there. Yeah, Ethan Page. No, it ain't Ethan Page. Again, Ethan Page is another guy. Hell yeah, I'd like to see him there, but he ain't the caliber. He's not living up to that hype, you know. Did I get any other super chats? Did I miss any others? Nope, I think we're good. Oh, yeah. Devlin, thanks for another 5 from you, man. Angle is most likely considering he's on the Jericho Cruise now. I did see that. So Angle is on the Jericho Cruise. I think he is one of the most likely ones, but I also kind of hope that Angle comes in separate from this announcement. That would be even better, but we'll see. Now, Paul Myers, we ruled out Batista. I cannot believe how many people think it's going to be Batista. I just cannot see that. I could be wrong. Batista could come out there and do his firework thing tomorrow and all that, but it would be so silly. He's the headliner for the next Hall of Fame class, whenever the fuck that happens. He was given a great send-off by WWE. He's officially retired, even though he himself has gone on record just this week saying that retirements mean nothing. He's a movie star now. He's 50 years old. What is he going to do in the ring? How is he going to improve AEW's situation? I just don't see it. I just don't see it at all. He would make no sense to me if it was Batista, and I'm gonna vote no on him. Very, very hard no on Batista. Juventud Guerrera, Kevin Thorne. I mentioned Mordecai earlier on. Oh, sorry, did I miss a super chat from you? Oh, I missed one from Barry as well. Sorry, I got to scroll back up here and knock a couple more of these out. Thanks for the $5, Barry. Have you seen the $1,000 Stone Cold title WWE's now selling on WWE Shop? No. What is it? The Smoking Skull? $1,000 for that? Maybe it's something different. No, I have not seen that. Maybe some new custom belt. I'm not into the custom belts. When Undertaker was on the Broken Skull sessions, they brought out like that purple winged eagle thing and didn't like it. I don't like they go too crazy. It's like wrestling belts are turning into DVDs now. You know, like when a DVD, you know, you get a 10-year anniversary and a 15-year anniversary and a 3-disc set and a Blu-ray and all these different versions of the same movie. I don't need that. That's too much. It's WWE just taking money from people. I just need the good old classics like I got hanging on the wall back there with the winged eagle. I don't need anybody's special belt. I think that's silly. But $1,000, fuck off, WWE. There you are, Zane. Sorry that I missed that $5 earlier on. When Big Show said Evolution instead of Revolution, oh, that reminds me of another name. As a mishap, hint, I was thinking Batista with the history of the group with Triple H, Flair, and Orton. Yeah, a lot of people thought that with Evolution, but I thought of something different with Evolution. Because when he said Evolution, I ruled them all out. It ain't going to be Triple H. It's not going to be Ric Flair. It's not going to be Randy Orton. The only person it could be is Batista, and I don't see it being him. But there was also a women's pay-per-view called Evolution, and that's one name I forgot to mention, Ronda Rousey. As far as I know, Ronda Rousey is still contractually obligated. If she is going to wrestle, she's going to have to do it in WWE. She did sign a multi-year deal. She only wrestled a year. I don't know if WWE just let her out of it. I mean, Ronda Rousey is a big star, so she has a lot of money, and she does not need that shit. She might have been able to work into the contract or the agreement that she can have an out whenever she wants. If she is available, she fits that bill as well. She doesn't fit the clue of being one of Tony Khan's favorite wrestlers of all time, but she fits shocking in a good way. And she definitely fits a Hall of Fame caliber type of star because Ronda did a fantastic job in her year in WWE. So Ronda coming in would definitely add some credibility to your women's division as well. So she's another name that I had in my head, but that's all dependent on whatever her contract situation is. So go talk to Ryan Ryan Satin or Sean Ross about that shit. If you want to find out, I honestly don't know. But, that's why we just speculate here, because all of this is contingent upon, what their contract situation is and whether or not they're locked up and whatever the details are there. I don't know a lot of those things. So we're just trying to throw out names, throwing everything against the wall. One of those names is going to stick. I mean, what are the odds that it's somebody other than any of the names we've mentioned here today? What if it's not Angle, Brock, Punk, RVT, Batista, Christian, Bret Hart, Aleister Black, Jay White, Okada, Trish, Lita, Ronda, Tessa? What if it's none of those people? Who is it? Who the fuck is it? I'm stumped. I like being stumped. I don't want to know. I don't want to be sure I know who it's going to be. I want to be surprised. So I'm hoping tomorrow we're going to be surprised. We'll find out, and we will talk about it more here in just a little bit. I think I got all the super chats now. Yeah, I thought about Evolution too with the Mark Jindrak, but no. Tony Khan said it was a male. That doesn't mean anything. Tony Khan says a lot of things. Colin Delaney, maybe. Could be Blue Tista. Vince Russo. No. Deshaun, don't make me block you. Oh, yeah, Mick Foley is another guy that we didn't mention. But again, Mick Foley, Hall of Fame caliber, yes, but what's Foley going to do there? He's going to be there to play the role of Jake. He's going to be there to play the same role that a lot of people are already playing there, and he doesn't live up to this hype. Foley appearing would be great. I'd love to see Foley there, but he ain't changing any landscapes, you know what I mean? And they're making this sound like that's what it's going to be. So we'll talk more about the AEW signee later on as we talk about Dynamite and we predict Revolution. But next, I want to pay tribute to Jim Crockett Jr. Jim Crockett Jr. passed away this week at the age of 76. There is no official cause of death other than he was just in the hospital not doing well, and the reports are that he did have COVID. Now, I think it was the Jim Crockett Promotions Facebook page that initially informed us that he was in the hospital and not doing well. So he was in our thoughts for a solid week before he passed away. We knew his situation was grave, and based on everybody that we were talking to, the reports from Meltzer, I heard Jim Cornette say a couple of things, sounded like he wasn't going to be able to kick out of this. So, unfortunately, he did pass away at 76, and we knew he wasn't doing well. But, he is a major, major influence in wrestling. I mean, Jim Crockett Jr. and Jim Crockett Sr. and Crockett Promotions in general have a long, long storied history. Way too much to get into here. We're going to get into a little bit of it, but I invite you, you younger fans to kind of do your research a little bit on Crockett Promotions, because it was, their affiliation with the NWA and Jim Crockett really being one of the only final competitors to Vince, and all of the history and the turmoil with them. Crockett was one of those guys that Vince liked to fuck with. Vince liked to fuck with Vern Gagne too. He didn't fuck with Bill Watts and a couple of other guys, but for some reason, he went really out of his way to stick it up the ass of Jim Crockett Jr. And, Jim Crockett Sr. began promoting, I think, in the 30s, and we're in the 2020s now. So about 90 years ago is when, this all started. They have a much longer history, than WWF does. But Jim Sr., much like the McMahons and much like Vern Gagne too, they were promoting way more than wrestling at first. He was doing like hockey and a lot of other stuff, and that started in the 1930s. And he has another son, John Ringley, who was supposed to be taking over, but Jim Crockett Jr. wound up taking over instead. And he was elected as the president of the NWA, I think 3 different times. I think there was a gap in there, that one term that he didn't have, but he was elected president of the NWA in the 1980s. And they basically, they were branding all of the Jim Crockett Promotion shows as a lot of different stuff. They were called All-Star Wrestling. They were called Worldwide Wrestling. They were called Championship Wrestling. And of course, they were called Mid-Atlantic, which is basically what they kind of referred to themselves as after they joined the NWA in the 1950s. Now, Jim Jr., he was the one that kind of brought in George Scott as the booker. George Scott would also book in WWE for a short time as well at the request of Vince Sr. I think he almost kind of stole him away from them when Vince Sr. sold to Vince Jr. and then asked George Scott to come up and help Vince, with the booking and stuff. And that's what George Scott was there when like Bret Hart first came in, like in 83, 84 and shit. So Jim Jr. was not really the head booker. He had guys doing that for him. I think Ole was in after George Scott. And way back in the day, I think in the late 70s, early 80s, Jim Crockett Promotions had a working agreement with Maple Leaf Wrestling, with MLW in Toronto. And that was, getting them up in a Northern Territory was a big deal. But after, and that was run by the Tunneys. Now, when Frank Tunney passed away, Jack Tunney, who I believe was his nephew, he took over, and instead of continuing the working agreement with Jim Crockett Promotions, he switched in favor of WWF and began working with them. And that's when WWE, began their relationship with them and ran a lot of shows. Toronto was there's a lot of great WWE shows that took place in Toronto, back in the day. You fast forward a little bit past that, we come to Black Saturday. That was in 1984 when Vince, bought the time slot, of Georgia Championship Wrestling out from underneath everybody. Crockett would wind up buying that back in 85 for about $1 million. That was also included the falling out between Ted Turner and Vince McMahon. And when Jim Jr. was elected to be NWA president during this time, he would go on almost like a purchasing spree. They started acquiring a lot of NWA territories and even teaming up with, I think, Vern Gagne to form Pro Wrestling USA, which was kind of short-lived. They were doing whatever they could to really try to compete with Vince and going national, which turned out to be part of their demise. And we'll talk about that here in a minute, because a lot of legends who worked around that time, I know Flair, Tully, Arn, Jim Cornette, guys like that, a lot of people have all had the same opinion that they would have remained in business longer than they were had they made some better business decisions. And in the rise and fall of WCW DVD that WWE came out with back, I think in like 2011 or 12 or something like that, Jim Crockett was interviewed for that, and he even admits to basically not being the businessman he should have been in some of these. So when he started purchasing all these territories, I think something like a half dozen of the NWA territories, including Florida Championship Wrestling and UWF, they were basically, calling themselves the NWA by that point. And since he was the president of the NWA, there really wasn't a lot of conflict there. So, as a kid growing up, I always looked at Mid-Atlantic and NWA kind of as the same thing, even though NWA had lots of other territories like St. Louis, and like Mid-South and stuff like that. So it was all very confusing, back then. And it was it was a lot more confusing than what was going on in WWE, who was kind of a separate entity going national on their own, where the NWA was kind of a combination of a lot of different, different promotions and whatnot. But when they were doing this really added up the business expenses, purchasing all these territories and then running towns that they're not used to running and not drawing crowds like they're used to drawing. Instead of just staying put where they are in the Southeast, you run the Carolinas, you run Georgia, you are going to do just fine. But they branched out maybe a little bit too far, and it caused a lot of problems, financially for the company. And like I said, a lot of people say that the company would have lasted longer had they not tried to go national. And then probably the big thing that happened was in the mid-'80s when they tried to expand too much. And this started with the Survivor Series in 1987 that was running head-to-head with Starrcade, and Vince, being the shitty businessman that he is, like I said, he always liked to fuck with Jim Crockett. He strong-armed basically the cable companies and said, hey, if you carry Starrcade, you're not going to get WrestleMania, which would have been WrestleMania 4. And because Vince is the bigger company, a lot of the cable companies, they folded and they said, okay. And they didn't carry Starrcade. So Starrcade 87 was only carried by a small handful of cable outlets. And another big mistake they made was moving it out of Greensboro. They put Starrcade 87 in Chicago. It was called Chi-Town Heat. And that was a big mistake, taking it out of Greensboro, when Starrcades and events in Greensboro sometimes, and Greensboro Coliseum is a place I've been to many, many times. I used to live in the Carolinas. I grew up around all this shit. Big shows in Greensboro, the town would be shut down. He even said so on the DVD. He goes, the cops would get on the radio and said, don't come to the Coliseum. It's sold out. You can't even get in here. Wrestling can really shut down a town in the Carolinas in the 80s during that time, and taking it out of that environment, putting it in a market that they're not used to being in, like Chicago. It's a huge market, but that's not where your fan base is. Your fan base is down south. They ran the Chi-Town, or no, not Chi-Town Rumble. They ran another show in early 88 in New York. And that was actually run head-to-head with WWE's first Royal Rumble on the USA Network. So WWE was always trying to one-up JCP and really caused them a lot of problems, and it worked. And I think that them chasing around WWE, them trying to mimic or imitate what they were doing. WWE had, they had the finances to go national. They had, they had that those production values and stuff that was a little bit more high tech than what the NWA was doing at the time. And when NWA tried to do that as well, go into markets where they're not used to going, it failed. AWA had that same problem. Vern, I think, tried to run the Garden one time. Stay where you are. stay in Minneapolis, stay in Denver, stay where you're used to your fan base being. And that was really done in a reaction to what WWE was doing. So in hindsight, of course, this was all a mistake, but maybe at the time they were thinking that was their only way to survive. So, Jim Crockett Jr. made decisions. Not all of them were good. And he really, really overspent. And then a couple of years later, history would repeat itself again with the overspending like it was when they were acquiring all the territories. Now they're buying planes. They're running Vegas. They're running the Cow Palace in San Francisco. They're running Chicago. They're going all over the place. And the expenses are just adding up and adding up and adding up. They weren't drawing any houses. A lot of their big events would draw what a WWF would draw on a house show. So, they weren't making the money to support the amount of money that they were spending. And eventually in the late 80s that's when it was known that they were, millions of dollars in the red. And all of these years, this long storied tradition of the Crockett's promoting was going to come to an end when they had to sell out to Ted Turner. And Ted Turner bought the company. I think it was for $10 million. I forgot what it was. It wasn't much. Well, I guess for that time it was a lot. I'm thinking in today's money, $10 million seems like a steal. I think Vince picked up the WCW tape library and their intellectual properties for like under $2 million or something like that. So for $10 million, I guess in the 80s was a pretty fair amount, but just selling out in general, I think was something that they really wrestled with, and they didn't want to, but they kind of had no choice in order for the company to survive. And probably the biggest reason they were able to sell is because of some of the good decisions they made, like really making the focus of their territory and their promotion around Ric Flair. Ric Flair was their big star. You also had Magnum TA there prior to the accident that was bubbling up as to be their version of Hulk Hogan. They had talent out the ass there. And when they ran in the Southeast, when they ran Virginia, Carolinas, Georgia, whatever, sold out houses, 10, 12, 15,000 people every time without fail. And they were doing a lot of this business while the sale was taking place, which is still pretty crazy when you look back at that. They still, they still had a following. Fans still wanted to see them, but selling out to Ted Turner, rebranding the company as WCW. Jim and David Crockett would both stay on as consultants, but they weren't consulted on jack shit. They were basically just cast aside. And WCW, or Ted Turner and his money, was able to rebrand it as WCW, tried to give it some better production, and now they have financial backing behind them. Brought in Eric Bischoff as the executive producer. He changed a lot. Fast forward a few years later, they're on Monday nights head-to-head with Raw. They start signing all the big names, and they are now the biggest wrestling company in the world. And without that sale to Ted Turner, we would have never gotten a Monday Night Wars. So in hindsight, it probably was the best decision they made. But like I said, so many people felt back then that Jim Crockett Promotions would have lasted. Some people say they'd be in business today. I do not. They would have died eventually, but I think they would have died maybe like 5 years later than they did. They could have maybe made it into the early 90s, like 93, 94, before the shit really hit the fan. But, hell, even by then, if they can make it to 93, 94, that's when WWE's coming down. Those 93, 94, 95 years were not good business-wise in WWE, so maybe there is a chance that they could have stuck around even longer, even into the late 90s. But as wrestling fans, we wouldn't have wanted that, because then no Monday Night Wars, no Monday Night Raw, no Attitude Era, probably no Austin, no Rock, no a lot of these guys. So this set forth a chain of events in history that, made it very, very good for the fans, but it was also very sad to see, the promotion have to sell and fold when they probably would have been able to stay alive a lot longer had better business decisions been made. So, Jim Crockett Jr. was a controversial figure. He did a lot of controversial things. He wasn't, he was a well-liked guy. He was just a kind of a laid back, good old Southern boy, had that nice, country accent, very inviting, he didn't come off as like an evil, crazy, maniac tyrant that Vince McMahon comes off as sometimes. He wasn't quite as cutthroat as Vince. He was just trying to fight. That's all he was trying to do. Some of the decisions he made were good. Some of them were really bad. Either way, though, you can't discount or discredit the influence and the impact that Jim Crockett Jr. and Jim Crockett Promotions had on professional wrestling, because this is my life, man. I mean, I grew up with all this stuff, and it was really sad to see like that part of wrestling history die. I mean, my tape library behind me, it's ghosts, all of it. It's just to see, Jim Crockett was old. He was 76. It's not like this was a tragic death that came too soon or anything like that, but it really makes you think that these big parts of wrestling history are starting to die out. And for a fan like me, it's really sad. I mean, I wish I could go back just to give me one Saturday. Give me one Saturday at 6:05 in the 80s. I want to go back to 1986, and turn on WTBS at 6:05 and watch Mid-Atlantic Wrestling. I wish I would give my middle nut to go back and do that for one day. And, when I think back to these times and some of these big names and these big influences in wrestling who are passing away, it's sad. And it's going to be the same thing when Vince dies. I know a lot of the modern fans want him to die and shit like that. They have no clue or respect for the history of wrestling at all. But for somebody like me, when Vince passes, that is going to be a monumental deal. That is, he really is the godfather of professional wrestling, maybe even more so than his dad at this point, based on what he's done and how long he's lived and stuff. So that's going to be a big deal either. When you had 3 generations of Crockett's and you had 3 generations of McMahon's, or 2 generations of Crockett's and 3 of McMahon's passing away. And maybe 4, if Stephanie and Shane, continue to take the reins in WWE one day. But it's kind of sad, and it's a little bit surreal to see, so much of wrestling history, dying more and more with each passing day. So thoughts go out to the family and friends of Jim Crockett Jr. He was a major part of wrestling history. And like I said, if you're young, and you're not really familiar with it, just do some research, read up on it. I'm sure there's tons of documentaries and history pieces you can probably watch on YouTube or WWE Network even, or, just general internet stuff, Wikipedias, things like that. Just kind of read up on the history there, because it's a pretty fascinating story in terms of how far back Jim Crockett Promotions goes, the history of it, how it started, how it continued, and of course, how it ended. So rest in peace, Jim Crockett Jr., very, very major wrestling passing. So thoughts are with his family. Let's get into some other wacky ass wrestling news. Like I said earlier, NXT is rumored to be moving to Tuesday nights, and this apparently is going to happen the Tuesday after WrestleMania. No confirmation as of yet, but that is rumored to be the case, and I really hope that it is. I think it's time. I liked the Wednesday Night Wars and everything, and I think the last thing we need, especially me for my life, is another night of wrestling to fucking worry about. But I think all in all, it's probably for the best, and I think it would probably benefit more AEW than anything else. And I think even Tony Khan did an interview this week where he said he would love to run unopposed. And that would be great for AEW. Maybe they can actually crack that million mark, that million viewer mark. I think the Shaq match did 1.3, but AEW fell just short of 1 million viewers this week. Without NXT, they can probably up those numbers a little bit. So that's probably just going to be best for everybody involved, even though wrestling wars are fun. It's probably for the best for everybody. So hopefully this will get confirmed very soon. And there's a couple of announcements coming up. Now, William Regal is supposed to make an announcement, I think next week, some major announcement about NXT as well. But I don't think that's going to be the move to Tuesdays. I think it's going to be an announcement of a women's tag team championship in NXT. And if you look at NXT right now, they actually have a pretty good women's tag team division. You got the 2 Caseys there. You got the Robert Stone brand. You've got Ember and Shotzi. Who else? I know you got some other women as well, but you really feel like you've got a division there. But I am very much against it. And we're going to talk about NXT here in a minute, but we had that finish of the tag match, which was bizarre. Why the hell Adam Pearce was there, I have no idea. Well, I guess because the some Raw competitors were there. But Adam Pearce sending out that referee, Dakota taps out. She's not the legal woman in the ring. And it was all kind of crazy and controversial. That really feels like they're setting up here for women's tag team championships in NXT. And I don't really need to see that, to be honest. I wish, that basically the reason I don't want to see it is because they can't even get their regular tag team titles straight. Those tag team titles have only been on a team that I've given a fuck about once, and that was Sasha and Bayley. Didn't really care about Asuka and Charlotte as a team. Can't stand the Iconics. Don't really like Shayna and Nia Jax either. So I have no interest really in anything they've done with the women's tag team titles. So why are you going to add a second set of those things? I'd much rather just have an NXT team beat Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler and just run with the titles for a little bit. They can come to the main roster, have some fresh matches, with people. So I don't really need to see it, but apparently that's going to be Regal's big announcement next week, is that the women's tags are going to be introduced. They're probably going to have a tournament for this, and then the finals will take place on the April 8th takeover. Now, again, none of this is confirmed. This is just what the chatter is. This is what everybody thinks is going to happen. A couple of people, I know Meltzer for sure has been one that's been reporting on this. So we'll see, but it looks like women's tag team championships are on the way to NXT, and that's something that I don't need to see, but we're probably going to see it anyway. Here's another great, wonderful piece of news in WWE's ridiculously stupid micromanaging of their talent. Apparently, no more thigh slapping in WWE. They're over it. They think it's too much thigh slapping. I think AEW needs this rule way more than WWE. But if you're a good professional wrestler, you can do the thigh slap without anybody noticing. The problem is now all the fans know everything. I mean, I even slap my thigh when I super kick my cat sometimes here in my office. So I got to read this report from the Observer. Or actually, this came from Fightful Select. I got this off Patreon today. So here's what they say, and I quote: Dave Meltzer reported in the Wrestling Observer News that wrestlers were getting fined or punished. I will repeat that: fined or punished for wrestling in the fucking ring. Fined or punished for thigh slapping their strikes, and that a memo was sent to NXT talent to advise against it as well. Fightful can confirm the fines, but last week we were told that a sign was up at WWE events with a big, bold letters that read "No thigh slapping," and the memo was also sent out to talent back in February. I got an idea for you, WWE. How about less camera shaking and worry about that sort of thing instead of worrying about thigh slapping? You know, instead you got like a chimpanzee with epilepsy fucking holding the cameras, you know, giving us all headaches and making us dizzy and making us vomit all over ourselves. To me, that is far more ridiculous than any thigh slap will ever be. So how about no more camera shaking, WWE? There's an idea. But no, thigh slapping is a big problem for them. And this is the type of micromanaging bullshit that I can't stand. And it's this type of stuff that it's kind of an odd comparison. But you know, like how in football, you can't even put a finger on the quarterback anymore without getting a flag? I understand you don't want any helmet to helmet. You don't want any, you know, to pound the guy into the dirt, no late hits. You know, the quarterback, you know, are usually the highest paid person on the roster. They're the general, they're the leader of the team, and they want to see these quarterbacks survive and not get injured all the time. So I'm all for that and protecting them, but it's getting out of hand in the NFL now with some of these penalties where sometimes you literally just touch someone with your hand and the referee's throwing a flag. And you're going to stunt the growth of these athletes. You're not going to make the game as exciting if you're doing shit like this. And I didn't realize that thigh slapping was that big of a problem in WWE. I've never watched a show in WWE and be like, man, that Smackdown would have been great last night if it weren't for all those thigh slaps. You get a little bit of that at AEW. The Bucks are pretty much known for that. They invented this fight. They're the ones that made the thigh slapping so obvious. You know, where other guys go back in the day to all the way back to maybe like the 90s. Razor Ramon comes to mind. Those great right hands. Rock did the same thing. Rock and Razor had the same punches, you know, and they would do that, but you wouldn't notice. There was nobody's putting up signs in the 90s in the Attitude Era. Hey, Rock, don't slap your thigh. So fucking dumb and such a ridiculous waste of energy to even care about this. It's not a problem. I never consider it to be a problem. I like it when thighs get slapped to give the impression that there's actually impact. And a lot of times when there's a crowd in a non-pandemic era, when it's performed right, like Aleister Black, when he does his big black mask and shit like that, you know, when he hits you with one of those or one of those like running knee strikes or something that Gargano would hit or something, and you slap your thigh, the crowd is like, ooh, you know, they react to that. So, you know, to me, this is a stupid rule. And it's just more of this micromanaging bullshit that I cannot stand about this company. You know, like you literally have to ask permission to go take a shit in the locker room. Is it okay if I go take a shit now? Like, what the fuck? You know, so anyway, no more thigh slapping apparently in WWE. Example number 1,400,635, why I hate this fucking company. Ugh, no more thigh slapping. Here's some good news. Here's why I do like this company sometimes. Bobby Lashley is your new WWE champion, won the WWE title this past Monday night on Raw. We were ecstatic about that this past Monday in the review. If you have not seen my thoughts and review on last Monday's Raw, please check it out on my channel right now. I have not seen a preview for this week, but what's next for Bobby Lashley? And hopefully we'll find out what he's going to be doing at Fastlane and WrestleMania. We'll be talking a lot more about this on Monday, and we talked a lot about it last Monday in terms of Bobby Lashley and what he's going to do. I was kind of expecting or thinking his title win would come at WrestleMania itself, maybe even down the line at SummerSlam, but instead it came on Raw 6 weeks before WrestleMania. So what does this mean? Is he going into Mania to retain, or is he going into Mania to drop it? And what's he going to do at Fastlane prior to then? But right now it feels like it's going to be Bobby and Drew for the title at WrestleMania, probably in night one. And I was also just flabbergasted to learn that, I guess I knew this, it just never really registered because Bobby Lashley does not age. If I'm ever doing a thumbnail or an overlay or something, I can put a picture of Bobby Lashley from 2006 or 2021, and you will not know the difference. Bobby Lashley is 44 years old. He's my age. He looks like he's 24. Unreal. R-Truth is like that too. Dude never ages either. But, you know, when I really kind of sit back and like take that in, I'm like, damn, Lashley is 44, huh? That's crazy to me. How good he looks and how good he is to be that age. And about time, WWE. I'm glad you didn't wait till this dude was 60 before you finally put the belt on him. I feel like Bobby should have been champ when he was 34. That's really the peak age for wrestlers. Austin, Brett, Shawn, all hit their peaks at age 34. All of them. 34 is the age you want to be in wrestling. But Bobby is 44, and I've never been happier for him. I'm so happy that he is WWE champion right now. But I got to admit, I'm slightly worried what his future is going to be. So what do you guys think is going to be next for Bob Lashley? Who knows? Let's talk a little bit about SmackDown here next, and then we'll get into the Wednesday night stuff and do some more speculation, and then we'll predict Revolution to finish off the podcast here. Let me just cruise over here to the chat and make sure nothing crazy is going on. Read some more of these ideas for All Elite Wrestling. Braden Walker is All Elite. I heard he's a real wild cat. Yeah, Eddie Guerrero, we talked about that. If they could tap into some resurrection technology, I'd love to see that. Could be Nia Jax's hole. We didn't even think about that. That would be hilarious if a Big Show introduced Nia Jax's hole. At that first All-In show, they brought out the big penises for Joey Ryan. Like, what if they did something like that but brought out Nia's hole? I don't know if I want to see that, but they could. Okay, got more CM Punk ideas there. Doc Hendricks. Could be Dennis Rodman. Oh, yikes. Y'all have some more interesting ideas than me. Yeah, I agree there. It's definitely not Mark Henry. Could be Mark Jindrak, Bray Wyatt. No. I thought about Shawn Michaels, but, you know, if he wasn't so heavily involved with NXT, I'm like, oh, maybe it's Shawn, but it ain't Shawn either. Nobody like that. And plus, if it is anybody major, like if it was some sort, and we don't get defections anymore. This isn't like back in the day. You know, you'll never get a Luger situation again because the internet we all know everything. Back in 95, you know, you didn't know, you know, because unless you were calling hotlines or something, information was not as available as it is now. So you really didn't know about Lex Luger. Hell, you really didn't know about Rick Rude. Even today, the Rick Rude thing wouldn't work. It wouldn't work because what would happen? You'd go on the internet or you'd go on Twitter, Rick Rude spotted backstage at Dynamite or whatever. So you wouldn't have been able to even pull that off of Rude being on Nitro and Raw on the same night, because it just wouldn't have worked. Yeah, Theory Games and Alexander Scrollback. We talked about all these names. Christian is a big no for me. I'm not saying it can't be him, but he feels like he's got to be involved in the Edge and Roman Reigns stuff. And I think Christian will pop up on TV again after Fastlane. You got to get on the other side of that. Christian hasn't been on TV, but Edge wasn't on TV last night either. So I think once you get on the other side of Bryan and Roman, then you can have Christian there. And I definitely think you have to have some sort of segment on TV between now and WrestleMania where Roman Reigns absolutely murders Christian to add fuel to the feud and all that stuff. And plus, if Edge does win the title at WrestleMania, how does Christian not get in that ring with him and celebrate, you know? So no. And it's not RVT, and it's definitely not Batista either. So Theory Games, you missed all of our discussion. Go back to the beginning of the podcast. You'll hear me talk about all these names and why it's not going to be them. But anyway, let's get into last night's SmackDown, because like I said, I did not think last night's SmackDown offered a whole lot. I skimmed through the show extremely fast. I was only interested in a couple of things, and I did like the opening. You know, Daniel Bryan coming out there and cutting a promo, talked about that ambition test that he had to take years ago in WWE, got a big kick out of that, said that he was the least ambitious person ever, but that's all changed, and he's an ambitious man now, and he said he's wrestled a ton this year. He said he's wrestled all the time, and Jey Uso and Roman Reigns haven't. And that made me think, I didn't even realize this, but I think that's a really nice touch with the Roman Reigns presentation is that we have not seen him wrestle on SmackDown. He feels more like Brock now, where he's kind of working the big shows. I think Daniel Bryan said that, Roman's wrestled 3 times this year and Daniel Bryan's wrestled every week. So, he kind of tied that into his promo a little bit. Roman winds up coming out, ego off the charts. Love this stuff. Everybody needs him. You need me. He needs me. Jay needs me. The roster needs me. I love this side of Roman Reigns because it's so awesome. And there's a match set up later on in the night. It's going to be the main event because last week, Daniel Bryan faced Jey Uso for a chance to face Roman at Fastlane and it ended in a DQ. This week, they're doing a cage match main event. So that'll be your main event, Daniel Bryan versus Jey Uso in a cage. During the promo, Jey is out there with Roman and Heyman, of course. He tries to get a jump on Daniel Bryan. Daniel Bryan sidesteps him, tosses his ass over the top rope, and that was the end of the segment, setting up for the main event later on. In terms of some of the matches we got in between, we had the stuff between Baron Corbin and Sami Zayn is pretty fun. I love watching 2 heels not get along. It's great. But we had a couple of singles matches here. Like we see every time tag teams face each other or are feuding. We get the singles matches on the show, and then next week this will probably be reversed. So we had Baron Corbin defeating Montez Ford in the first match. After that, Angelo Dawkins defeated Sami Zayn. After the match, Sami Zayn goes on to beat the shit out of one of his cameramen, who I guess is Blake Christian, who was signed recently to WWE and brought in. Where was he before? He was Impact and maybe a little Japan too, right? He was working New Japan Strong. I forgot where he was, but he's been other places. He's recently come in, and apparently he was the cameraman that Sammy beat up. And I did read today that apparently this True Hollywood story bullshit that Sami Zayn is doing is actually going to be some sort of a network special or YouTube special or something. So these aren't fake cameras they're out there with. Apparently they really are following Sammy around. This should be pretty fun whenever that comes out. But Sammy was pissed and blames the camera guys and all that, and he beats the hell out of poor Blake Christian after the match. But, we're eyeballing that whole situation, but it's not something I care about. The thing to me that's the most entertaining about that is the chemistry between Baron Corbin and Sammy. Don't discredit that chemistry. That could turn into something between those guys. I like them together a lot. And I'm kind of changing my tune on Baron Corbin. Everybody just hates this guy, but if you look at Baron Corbin and say this guy can't work, you don't know a goddamn thing about wrestling, because he can, and his matches are good. Even though he's ugly and he's stupid and he's got a dumb face and voice, he's good in the ring. Carmella fired Reginald for being obsessed with Sasha Banks. We knew that was coming. Reginald has been fantastic in that role. He's so good, so athletic, so fun, so entertaining. This will not be the last we see of Reginald. He'd be back later, and he'd get shit on some more, but I think we'll see Reginald back in some form under the umbrella somewhere. Maybe this was his introduction. Maybe he turns up in NXT next or something, but Reginald will be back, I think, because Reginald is awesome. We also had Dominic defeating Chad Gable in a one-on-one match. Kind of surprising there. I think Chad Gable's a little better, but good for Dom. Seth Rollins did an interview backstage in this just remarkably gorgeous pink suit. I am really liking some Seth Rollins now. I like the approach he's taking to this gimmick, where it's not, I hated the Monday Night Messiah stuff and the eye for an eye match versus Mysterio. I didn't like Seth in that role. Didn't think he was entertaining in that role. Thought his promo sucked in that role. Everything is different now. He feels a lot more like what Johnny Gargano was doing in NXT, where he's almost having fun with it. And he's way more animated now. The swing shit last week with Cesaro was the funniest thing I've ever seen. And Seth here tonight was no different in the interview. Murphy shows up actually in the interview and offers to help Seth Rollins with the Cesaro situation. And Seth basically tells him to fuck off. But Cesaro and Murphy would have a match later, and Seth would sit in on commentary for this. And he was just having a fun time out there. He really, like, his whole entire demeanor has seemed to change. He's still a heel. He's still a delusional heel who feels like people who should follow him, but it's how he's approaching the role that is so much different. I think when he tries to have fun with it, not make it a total comedy angle, but make it entertaining. And I think that's a big factor there, because there was nothing at all entertaining about the Monday Night Messiah at all. Hated everything about it. But this is completely different. He's out there wearing outlandish suits. Last week, he looked like John Travolta in fucking 70s movie, the dancing movie, whatever it's called. And this week he's wearing the big pink thing. He looks ridiculous. He's yelling and hooting and hollering during the swing. He was having a good old time here on commentary. And this is the most entertaining I have found Seth since he was feuding with Brock Lesnar as a babyface going into WrestleMania that year. Seth is great. Love this stuff. In the end, though, Buddy Murphy tapped out to the Sharpshooter. And I put this on Twitter last night. When you watch Cesaro put the Sharpshooter on, that, my friends, is how you properly apply the Sharpshooter. Cesaro does it flawlessly. Every wrestler that has tried this move before has butchered the fuck out of it. Brett himself has said in multiple interviews, he goes, nobody can put it on right. Nobody knows how to put it on right. And you watch Sting with the Scorpion Deathlock, and it sucks. Even back when Sting was in his prime, in his mid-30s and strong, he put that thing on so shitty. He put no torque on it. He didn't cinch up. He didn't lean back. He just kind of leaned forward. Rock had an okay one, but not great. Cesaro knows exactly what he's doing. He's got his arm over here. He's got it hooked. He's pulling back on the knee, and it's exactly how you apply that. Finally, we've found somebody that knows how to use the Sharpshooter properly, and I hope Cesaro keeps this move as his finisher indefinitely. The only thing we're missing now is maybe next year at WrestleMania, get a Cesaro and Kevin Owens submission match. How fun would that be? With well, I guess Cesaro's the bald one, but it would have to be reverse. Cesaro with the Sharpshooter on Owens. Owens pushing up and blood. And oh my God, that'd be so great if they did some sort of a tribute to that. But I think it's very cool for the fan and me. I appreciate we have two people on SmackDown right now, one using a Sharpshooter, one using a Stone Cold Stunner. That's pretty cool. So Cesaro picked up the win there. His, role continues, and his push, if you can call it that, continues. And I guess we're setting up for Cesaro and Seth at Mania, unless they try to fast track this and get this match booked for Fastlane, which they might, and maybe do a rematch at WrestleMania. But you got to think that how is Seth or Cesaro going to work with anybody else other than each other at WrestleMania, unless they're like in the Battle Royal or something. So looks like they're setting up for Seth and Cesaro here. That could be fun. But then again, maybe not so fun, because Seth took an L last year to Owens. Is he going to take another one this year to Cesaro? I don't know. My gut tells me no, but would love to see Cesaro win a WrestleMania match with a Sharpshooter. That would be awesome. Here's something else I want to talk about. Apollo Crews. Apollo Crews came out last week with a brand new look. He talked about his family heritage, that he's a descendant of Nigerian royalty, talked about his family. And when he was talking about his grandfather and how his grandfather would say things, he kind of went into the Nigerian accent. And I loved that. I thought that was so cool. It felt like he was speaking from the heart. It felt genuine. He felt like he was talking about something that was important to him with his family history and everything, really changing up his attitude. And his delivery is on point. Even though what we saw here last night on SmackDown wasn't, to me, as good as what it was the previous week. It's almost like, back how I always made the argument with John Cena when fans were like, John Cena can't cut a promo. I'm like, yes, he can, idiots. The problem is what he's being scripted to say. That's garbage. That's what's garbage. John Cena's promo cutting ability is one of the best in the business. And if you can't see that, you are blinder than a fucking bat, or deafer than one. But here, it's kind of the same thing. Apollo Crews knows how to deliver it, but last night he came out and he's got what he calls the elite guard. Looks like two indie guys in camouflage standing there with him as his backup, which is kind of cool. I don't know if that's going to be a permanent thing, if these two specific guys are going to be with him every week, because I don't know who they are, or if it's going to be different guys playing. He's just going to have different guards with him. I don't know. Not sure yet. But this promo was done completely in the Nigerian accent, which a lot of people on the surface praise, but I find problems with a little bit, because it made me think about Kofi. It made me think about Kofi Kingston and his Jamaican accent, and then all of a sudden it went away. And, they would poke fun at that on TV. Where'd your Jamaican accent go, Kofi? Where'd it go? So for Apollo, I liked it last week when he did the Nigerian accent, when he was talking about his grandfather and how his grandfather would say this. Here's how my grandfather would say it. And he went into the accent. Now, this is how he speaks now. And even though I like the new Apollo Crews and I'm loving all of this, it's fake. It's kind of a fake accent. And look at who he is feuding with right now. Mr. Fun-Loving Big E, who himself has given his own partner, Kofi Kingston, shit about dropping the Jamaican accent. So I ask you this. How is Big E going to come out to TV now and not mock this thing And that's where I think the big problem is. If you get a babyface out there making fun of the accent, it's dead. It's dead. So I see potential problems there. And I think that Apollo right now is feuding with the absolute worst person because Big E is such a comical guy. And Big E, his personality, Big E's personality is not going to be able to be in that ring with Apollo and not talk shit about his accent. And I think that's going to give this gimmick some problems. That's just my gut. I don't know. Maybe it'll work out perfectly well and perfectly fine. Last week, I liked the inclusion of the Nigerian accent for him just to start talking about this now. It's, we use the word genuine. We use the word authentic. Well, there's really nothing genuine or authentic about a fake accent, unless this is how he's always talked and the accent he was using was fake. Maybe his previous voice was the fake one, and this is how he's always talked. And he mentioned that. He goes, this is how I talk. This is how I sound. He said all this last night in the promo, which I don't entirely hate. I don't even hate any of this. I love all of it. It's just knowing the way wrestling is and how we've done things like this in the past, and based on who his current opponent is and his current program is with right now, the minute a babyface comes out there, like imagine if The Rock was on TV right now, and he came out there and he heard him and he said something. I mean, the minute a babyface insults this hard or mocks it to a degree where it gets a big audience pop, or we're all laughing about it on Twitter or something, the whole thing is dead. And I don't want to see that for Apollo Crews. I love the new attitude. I really like the new look. He looks fantastic. And like I said, his ability to cut a promo, his delivery of said promo is literally nearly perfect. I mean, he's very, very, very good. I just think that I'm not quite sure if the accent thing is going to cause problems for them in the future. You know what I mean? That was like what my gut told me, because all I did was watch the YouTube clip. I didn't watch the whole thing. I just watched the YouTube clip, and that was the first thing I thought of. I thought about Kofi and the Jamaican accent. I'm like, oh fuck, this is going to be weird if this guy's a heel, and if baby faces come out there and make fun of him, that's going to be a problem unless they really position him and he's got these guys with him, the backup and the guard, to where anytime any babyface does try to mock his heritage or his accent or something like that, they get their asses kicked, sending a message, don't make fun of this, I'm going to kill you. Now, if they do that, maybe it can work, but these are the problems I see with it. And I was kind of laughing last night. I saw a couple of big YouTubers saying, oh, I love the Apollo promo, it's so genuine. I'm like, I think you're just saying the word genuine without really thinking about what the word genuine means. If you're out there in a fake accent, what's genuine about that? So him tying into his heritage and his family royalty and all of that, I like. It's just, I don't know. This is just me. I might be way off base here. Just in my head, I see potential problems down the road. And I don't want potential problems, because I want Apollo Crews to win championship gold. As much as I love Big E, by the way, speaking of Big E, I caught the Big E 24. Unreal. If you guys haven't checked that out, go look at it on the WWE Network. Loved seeing his story. Loved the work in Cena's gym. Holy shit. Took the bench press record. Here I thought nobody was going to beat my bench press record in John Cena's gym, and Big E beat it by a couple of pounds. So, go back and watch that, because it's good stuff. That documentary on the network was great. And as much as I love Big E, as much as he's like literally one of my top 2 or 3 people in the company right now, I'm really liking this Apollo Crews stuff too. And I would love to see him beat Big E for the Intercontinental title. It'd be really cool if that happened at WrestleMania. Actually, I'd be totally into that. But using the accent, I see potential problems. Not that the problems are actually going to happen. I just see possibilities, so give me your yay or nay on that. Do you agree or not? Still very much into Apollo Crews. Still very happy that WWE is, putting some investment behind him, changing up his look and putting time and everything into this. That accent scares me, makes me worried. So we'll see. Hopefully I am wrong. Funny little ding dong hello rehearsal. Wasn't even in the ring. It was in that backstage ring that they had. And basically she's so I guess it's like, Jimmy Kimmel and some of those other talk shows have like mean tweets where people come out and celebrities read tweets about themselves, bad ones. This one is called Sweet Tweets, where Bayley is only going to read compliments about her. And then she reads a couple off about how great she is or whatever. And then she comes to one that clearly isn't good, gets all mad, throws it down. And that was the end of the segment. I think the segment was less than 2 minutes long. It was really fast. But Bayley, even though I didn't really like any of this that they did, Bayley is so goddamn entertaining. And I nominate her. If we are going to have a host of WrestleMania this year, I nominate Bayley. I think she'd be fantastic in that role. That brings us to the main event. Daniel Bryan taking on Jey Uso in the steel cage match. What the hell was Corey Graves doing out there prior to the match explaining the fucking rules? Yeah, we know the rules. I understand that it's Fox and maybe you got some new eyeballs or something, but why does Corey Graves need to be in the ring for 5 minutes explaining how you win a cage match? It's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. Were they running short? Were they running long on time? Did they have some extra time to fill, or they needed some extra filler? I have no idea why he was even in there doing that. That was a part of a cage match that I've never seen before. There was another part of a cage match that I've never really seen before that I liked, and that was the cameraman sitting up top. Did you see that? Good camera angles from up there. The dude just sitting up there on the thing with the camera. Very cool stuff. The match was good. Daniel Bryan wound up tapping out Jey Uso with the yes lock to win the match. Roman Reigns is sitting in a very comfortable chair in the aisleway with Paul Heyman watching this whole thing go down. Daniel Bryan wins and earns himself a title shot officially against Roman Reigns at Fastlane, which we never really had any doubt about, especially after last week when they did the count out. Like, all right, they're just stretching this out to fill more TV. So we knew we'd get a rematch. We knew that whatever they wound up doing, Bryan would go into Fastlane to face Roman Reigns. So they've had a Fastlane match before. Help me on my year here. Do I have it right? 2015? So Daniel Bryan still had the long hair, and it was after his WrestleMania 30 victory and all that, right? I think it was 2015 when they faced at Fastlane, and of course, Roman Reigns defeated him, so they are going to have a rematch here. I don't see any reason why this is going to be any different of a result. I think Roman Reigns obviously will retain here over Daniel Bryan and go on to face Edge at WrestleMania, but Daniel Bryan versus Roman is now official, and I guess we're going to get maybe a WWE title match as well, Bobby Lashley against somebody, or maybe not. Maybe they just build a Drew and Lashley at Mania. Don't know yet, but we'll talk more about that on Monday night. So that does it for last night's Smackdown. Oh, thank you for that. 2015? Thought so. See, sometimes I can remember shit. Other than that, I just want to get into some of the Wednesday night shows, and then we'll run through the Revolution predictions. But let me cruise up here, knock out a couple more super chats that have been coming in, see what else you guys are saying about this whole thing. Yeah, Reese, Black Panther vibes. It definitely did. I like the guy and the guys in the camouflage and all that. I like the fact that he's got some backup there. It's just, I just worry, as good as the promo was and everything, I'm like, how does Big E come out there and not make fun of that? Given who Big E is. Think about it. Think about who Big E is. Motherfucker comes out of the ring, lays down and rolls down the ramp when he makes his entrances. How is he going to come out there and ignore the fact that this guy has a different voice now? You know what I mean? So that's my big concern about that. Oh, sorry, Chris. I'm scrolling. I'm going back up. Go all the way back up here. Miss the ones that... Oh, maybe I did miss yours. I think I missed one. Nope, I got you. Supernatural. Well, Chris, I am really sorry. I'm scrolling up trying to find your super chat, but I cannot find it at the moment. Bear with me. We got an active chat today, so sometimes things get buried. Let me start here, too, with Miguel Zarate, the Zarate Kid. Thanks for the $5, dude. Unrelated, Greg, what Dark Side of the Ring episode for Season 3 are you most excited for? I kind of forgot what they are now. I kind of forgot. I like they're going to be doing the round table type of thing. They're going to be doing with Blue Meanie's involved in that. Conrad's involved in that. They're doing an episode. I think I saw a clip of one they did on the Gino Hernandez show from last season, which is going to be good. This year, I think, is Pillman one of them? He's definitely going to be on the top of my list, but honestly, I'm kind of blanking on who they all are now. And thanks, Chris, for the $2 Saturday Night Live. You missed my earlier super chat. Help me out. What did you ask me? Because I can't find it. Or actually, I can probably find it over here. Go to the other screen. I'll see it. Oh, man, I missed a couple. Diet Water, I missed one from you as well. Sorry about that. And thanks for the $2. Kali versus Marco Stunt in a Punjabi Playboy match. What is that? What are the rules of that? I want to know. There you are, Chris. I see you now. Is it the big Punjabi cage with Playboy models in there? Man, poor Marco Stunt. I want to see Big Show versus Marco Stunt. That would be hilarious. There you are, Chris. I see it now. Thanks for that $5 from earlier on. Sorry I missed that. These announcements usually fall short. When TNI hyped a big signing, it would wind up being guys like Chavo or Ken Anderson. Yeah, we talked about that. I said that I feel like they're setting themselves up potentially for a letdown here because we have seen not only TNA, but AEW themselves have kind of fallen short with some of these major announcements or announcements that they consider to be major. guys coming out and with the lights going out, and then it just turns out to be Cody Rhodes. Like, who gives a shit? So yeah, we'll see. We'll see what winds up happening there. Did I get them all? Yeah. Okay. I think that caught us up for now. Yeah, Kevin, I've gotten the Adam Pearce comparison before. Except I'm way hotter than him. Yeah, Jennifer's got a point there. Well, Big E did spend a lot of time throwing pancakes into the crowd, so he doesn't really need to throw stones at Apollo's entrance. That's true. It's not as an entrance. I like his entrance. It's his promos. I'm worried about the accent thing. I'm really, really worried. If Apollo was feuding with anybody else, I think it would probably be fine, but he's feuding with Big E, the most fun-loving guy in the world, who is not going to be able to sit there and sit still and not mention that, hey, this is not the way you sounded before. So that's all I'm worried about. Just all it is concern. It's concern for Apollo. Like, I want the absolute best for Apollo. So anytime I see a potential problem, I worry about it. So that's why we brought it up. But hopefully I am way off base and I'm way wrong. By the way, for those of you who are in here right now, can you do me a favor? Hit the thumbs up button for me. I don't have any dislikes yet, but I'd like some more likes. Appreciate that. If you could help me. I wasn't aware of that, Ryan. And I agree with Jennifer again. Fastlane as a pay-per-view honestly does not need to happen. None of them do. I wish it was just Rumble and then Mania. I wish they took those 2 months off and just put all your build and energy into that, because when WWE thinks too fast and they're just writing shows every day during lunch, you can't have any forward planning when you got all these pay-per-views. As soon as you're done with one, you got another one 3 weeks later, and it's just creative has suffered for it throughout the years. So I agree totally. But Ryan, I was not aware of Casey Catanzaro is out with a torn LCL right now. How long are you out for an LCL? It's not an ACL. It ain't a year, but it ain't good. Plus, they have a network special tomorrow on the girl from North Carolina that won a boys wrestling tournament. On the network? Tomorrow? I'm not even aware of that. I never heard that story. Girl from NC is in North Carolina? Good. That's so awesome. A girl whooped all the boys' asses. That's fantastic. Wonderful. That makes me so happy. I hope she whipped their asses. Who was it? Layla Hirsch? She could probably do it. Anywho, all right, that should catch up the chat there for the time being. Let's get into the Wednesday night shows real quick. We'll start with NXT. NXT was okay this week. By the way, the ratings for NXT was 692,000 viewers, about average for what they're used to getting. Their numbers will probably increase a bit as well once the move to Tuesdays happens, if it does happen. We had Oney Lorcan and Danny Burch defeating Tommaso Ciampa and Timothy Thatcher in the opener. I was really on board with the Thatcher and Ciampa team. Doesn't look like they're going to have a whole lot of mileage left now. They've dropped some matches. They never won the titles. I think they lost in the tournament. And who was up on the stage? I think it was the Imperium guys or something, kind of offered a distraction there to help Lorcan and Burch win. We had Roderick Strong coming out to the ring, cut a promo calling out Adam Cole, wants explanations and blah, blah, blah. Finn Balor then comes out instead and says, without even Cole being there, he says that he's going to defend the NXT title next Wednesday against Adam Cole. So we've got an NXT title match coming up this Wednesday, which is big. Adam Cole and Finn Balor is what I thought they would book for TakeOver. That could still happen now, but, what's going to happen here next week? If I had my guess, this is when we'll see Kyle O'Reilly come back out. He'll interfere in the match. He'll attack Adam Cole. Something will happen there, and Balor will remain champ at least past Wednesday. But what they do after that, we'll have to wait and see. I guess, with TakeOver, I guess it'll probably be Balor and Cole in a rematch, or you add O'Reilly in and do a triple threat, or you have Balor work with somebody else, which I think is what I would pick. If I had my pick, I'd have Balor work with a new opponent, and I do O'Reilly and Cole one-on-one. Grudge match type of thing at TakeOver. So we'll see. The stage and the table should be set for that next Wednesday. But Roderick, like I said, he was calling out Cole. Balor came out, said he's going to have the title match with Cole next week. Roderick and Balor get into a scuffle to end the segment, and then after that, it was announced that they will face each other in the main event of this show. So we'll get Roddy and Balor in the main event, which is a very, very sexy-looking match, if you ask me. This was my favorite segment of the entire week across all shows. It really was. The therapy session involving The Way. Johnny Gargano, Candice, Indy Hartwell, and of course Austin Theory are all sitting there in a therapist's office. This little old lady, probably Dr. Shelby's grandma or something, is in there. And basically they're there because they really are, they think Austin Theory needs help because he doesn't seem to be upset that Dexter Lumis kidnapped him. Indy Hartwell doesn't seem to be upset about it either. And she was over there kind of doodling and, making little snide comments like, ooh, he can do that to her. I'd like to, he can kidnap me anytime he wants. And she's like writing, Mrs. Loomis on her, board or whatever. So she's got this huge crush on Dexter. Austin thinks him and Dexter are bros. Candice and Johnny are literally shitting their pants over this because they can't understand why these two morons are so okay with being kidnapped and Dexter Loomis should be in jail. And Johnny just starts freaking out. This is actually like a 3-segment long deal that spanned the course of the night. But Johnny is really starting to freak out hard. And he's mad that Austin isn't mad at Loomis. And Austin is kind of like, oh, we just hung out and I hung out and ate cereal and saying all these funny ass lines. And Johnny is like losing his shit. And finally, the therapist then starts accusing Johnny. He's the one with the real issues here. He's the one with the anger and the anxiety issues. And he's screaming and he says, I don't want to be therapied on. Nobody's going to therapy on me. And I'm calm. Calm is my middle name when obviously it's not. The therapist winds up kicking him out, but kicking him out of the room as the session continued. But Candice is kind of like texting him through the door. And then the therapist kind of wises up and he's like, are you texting Johnny? And then she opens the door and Johnny was just like, oh, I'm just calling Uber Eats. Y'all want anything? I fucking laughed my ass off. It's just that he's getting some Uber Eats. So he's sitting there and Indy is, she's very, very kind of smitten with Dexter Loomis a little bit. All this stuff is fantastic. In the end, though, you get, I think, therapist and Austin are in there alone, and that's when the therapist tells him that she spoke to Dexter Loomis, and he went on to say that he thought Austin was obnoxious, he was gross, he has mediocre abs. That was what did it. He said he was obnoxious, gross, has poor hygiene, a couple of other things, and then when she said that he had mediocre abs, that's when he broke down into tears. I can't believe it. And he started crying and he felt so betrayed and he's heartbroken that Dexter Loomis thinks he has shitty abs or something. And he just gets so upset and they get him out of the room. And that leaves the therapist in there by herself. And then Johnny Gargano comes back in and pays her. So I guess he paid her to lie about Loomis. He really does not want the Loomis and Austin Theory friendship to go any further. So he's kind of manipulating things here to make it seem like Dexter Loomis doesn't want anything to do with Austin Theory and breaking his heart. Hands the therapist a stack of $100 bills and he leaves. And then she kind of says something like, what a bunch of idiots. And she's right. That shit was so funny. And I love Johnny Gargano in this role. He's fantastic. I would love to see some sort of a confrontation, down the road with Gargano and Seth Rollins, like the battle of the delusion stars, because they're both kind of similar. They're both completely out of their minds and they're both extremely delusional and they're very, very, very funny. So far, Gargano to me is the favorite of mine, but Seth is catching up. Seth with the swing shit last week, his pink jacket and going all crazy, this week on SmackDown was really funny, but they remind me of each other a lot, Gargano and Seth. And Gargano is probably one of my favorite acts right now in NXT. Absolutely hilarious. That was across the board of all shows, aside from maybe the Lashley title victory, was my favorite segment of the week. Hilarious shit. We had Ember Moon defeating Aaliyah. I had completely forgotten about Robert Stone. I hadn't seen him in a while, or at least I don't remember seeing him in a while, but he's out there. And Jesse Camille was out there as well. So that's, Robert Stone has got his, tag team as well, which adds fuel to the potential fire of the NXT women's tag team titles being created. And speaking of that, that's when we got the women's tag team title match. Nia Jax, Shayna Baszler heading down to NXT to defend the titles against Raquel Gonzalez and Dakota Kai. This was a pretty fun match here, especially with Dakota and Shayna kind of tapping into their history, because Shayna used to beat the shit out of poor little babyface Dakota before she got an attitude. So kind of rekindling that a little bit was fun to see. And Nia Jax was doing her thing in there as well. Really fun to see kind of Nia and Raquel coming face to face, because I am a much, much bigger Raquel Gonzalez fan than I am a Nia Jax fan. And I hope one day Raquel beats the shit out of her. Like I said, Adam Pearce is there as well, because I guess these are his women from the roster. And I don't know the name of the referee, the female referee, the lady referee they had in this match. I don't know her name. I know Jessica Carr. I can't remember this one's name, but she took a bump. Have we seen any women ref bumps yet? Not that I can think of. We might have, but this is the first one I can remember seeing. So the referee takes a bump, and that's when Adam Pearce comes out and sends out, I guess, one of his Raw officials that he brought with him. Pack the ref in his bag, I guess, put him in the overhead compartment on the plane, and brought out a ref to come out there when Shayna Baszler has got the Kirifuda clutch on Dakota Kai, but Dakota is not legal. Raquel is. And the referee goes in there and calls for the bell as Dakota is tapping out. And Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler retain the titles. So this kind of added the controversy, and Adam Pearce and William Regal, I think, have an argument backstage after that. And Regal, that's when he said he's going to make some sort of an announcement next week or whenever it is. So I think based on, all the evidence here adds up, based on the finish of this match and how it was done, and Adam Pearce bringing his own ref in, Dakota not being legal, that, Dakota and Raquel were really screwed. So NXT is going to create their own women's tag team titles to where they don't have to bother with the main roster coming in and fucking up the works. So it seems like that's going to be the announcement, but like I said, it's not a set of championships I need. I don't think, and NXT is a completely different story than the main roster. I think NXT does have their ducks in a row creatively a lot better than Raw and SmackDown, but since the tag team titles, the women's tag team titles were created, I thought the only way they could succeed is to be a floating title, because that would be fun, fresh, create new matchups, things like that. So now just having NXT have their own, yeah, they got some good teams there, but do they have enough teams to really sustain a division like that? Maybe they're trying to make this a thing. You do have a lot of women on your roster and you don't have a secondary title. Not all of them can be champions. So at least if you put a couple of them together, make them tag teams, you can create some actual women tag teams, which is something that we haven't seen since the Glamour Girls and the Jumping Bomb Angels and things like that from back in the day. So I guess, there's a part of me that thinks this is okay, but when I see the way the regular tag team titles are treated, I don't know. They can't even get that shit right. So I don't know if we really need this, but we're getting it. What did y'all think about the LA Knight promo? He's a talker, isn't he? Does he have a big hunk of red man in his mouth, or did he just talk like, is he really trying to imitate Austin? He's got that very stone cold and rock type of way of cutting his promos, which I think is a little bit outdated based on, some of his delivery, but he can still talk. He's still very cocky. He feels like he's NXT's answer to MJF. Who do you think is better? Who do you think's better on the mic? LA Knight or MJF? They're very similar. That would make a really fun matchup one day if these guys ever did cross paths, or if MJF ever turns up in WWE one day. I kind of feel like they're counterparts. I think MJF is a little bit higher of a star in AEW than LA Knight is currently in NXT, but LA Knight just got there. So I liked his promo, very cocky, very conceited, and, and all that kind of stuff. And as he's leaving, that's when Bronson Reed is coming out for his match with Cameron Grimes. Little stare down, planted a little seed there. And then after that, we got Bronson versus Cameron Grimes, and Knight shows back up, shoves Bronson Reed off the top rope, allowing Cameron Grimes to hit the cave-in for the win. So Cameron Grimes picked up another win because he's one of my favorite people on TV right now. And now it looks like Bronson, who was gaining a little bit of momentum at one point, seems to have been dropping now. He dropped this match here to Cameron Grimes, and you got to think, if his first opponent, if LA Knight's first feud is going to be with Bronson Reed, LA Knight's going to win his first feud, right? He'll win that first match. So I feel like Bronson's headed for another loss here, and they have planted the seed for LA Knight's first opponent in NXT, and that'll probably be a takeover match, I suppose. Maybe do Knight's in-ring debut there at Takeover against Bronson Reed, I suppose. MJF by a highway. Okay. That's kind of surprising. I kind of agree that he's the best between the two, but I didn't think it was like a landslide or anything. I still think LA Knight is pretty good. We'll see. LA Knight, like I said, he just got there. We heard him cut a lot of promos in NWA and stuff and other places, but in terms of NXT, it only has been a couple of weeks. In terms of cocky and cocky demeanor and how full of shit he is, I think they're about equal. But it's hard to beat MJF. I can't argue with that. And in the main event, no big surprise here. Finn Balor did defeat Roderick Strong with the 1916 in the main event there. And NXT lately has been running about 8 minutes past the hour to get the little jump on the little extra time there of Dynamite, and a pretty strong main event for NXT. So solid show. Nothing great, but very solid. To me, the MVP of NXT this week was Johnny Gargano. Let's talk about AEW. Finally, AEW Dynamite this week. Their rating came in at a 934,000 viewers, and apparently the Cody and Shaq match got a 1.3, and very smart move by AEW having this match open the show. That was the way to go. That was the right call. Instead of trying to do this shit in the main event or mid-show or something like that, you get your lead in there, you open up Dynamite, maybe some leftover viewers from whatever the fuck was on before, and they see Shaq coming out there. I think that was the right call, doing that. And this was amazing. Everybody did well. I cannot believe how good this was. On paper, when we heard about this match being booked, I was like, uh-oh, this is going to suck a big one. You know, what can Shaq really do in there? We've seen him in a WWE ring a couple of times, but we've never really seen him move around or work. I mean, near the end of his NBA career, he wasn't doing a whole lot of physically either. So I didn't really know what Shaq was going to be able to do in there, but he did an amazing job. So did Jade Cargill. It really seemed like it was a showcase for her, but I was not expecting Shaq to do as well as he did in there. And of course, he had to be in the ring with Cody the whole time, and he was doing pretty good. He was landing his shit. He was laying stuff in. I really, really marked out and appreciated from Shaq the Brody Lee tribute with the power bomb on Cody, where he kind of did the thing and, power bomb Cody, and he delivered a power bomb. Shaq power bombed somebody. That was pretty awesome too. It looked great. I don't know if anybody told him to do the Brody thing or whatever and say, hey, this might get you in good with the audience if you do something like that. I know I loved it. I appreciated that. Cody body slammed Shaq, kinda. Cody's body slam on Shaq reminded me of Luger's body slam on Yoko on the Intrepid. On the aircraft carrier there. That was pretty funny. I mean, barely got him up. It was more of a hip toss than a slam, but hey, got him up, slammed Shaq down. Like I said, Jade Cargill was extremely impressive in this. Really good in the ring. She seemed like you can definitely tell she's been training, and she's got a lot of room to improve. She wasn't perfect, but based on her first outing, I wasn't really a whole lot sure what we were going to get out of her either. I didn't know if we were going to get a whole lot. I didn't know what she can do because physically she has everything. She's just ridiculous. Not an ounce of fat on her. She's got more abs than I can even count. She's got bigger arms than Hulk Hogan. She's tall. I mean, she's literally just a physical specimen. But I didn't know what she could do from an athletic standpoint in the ring. I think somebody like Bianca Belair might be a little bit more athletic than her, but she really did hold her own there. Really good showcase for her. Good offense, pretty good selling. She was doing a lot of selling the blows, selling the punches, selling the kicks, took some bumps. And like I said, maybe my only big critique of her is on the outside of the ring when they were setting up for the finish and she was setting up the table, one of the tables. It took her 45 minutes to put one, girl, when you get a table out of that ring, you got to flip those legs down, flip it over. I mean, she took her time. She put one leg up, then walked around to the other side and put the other leg down, then walked back and got in position to where she could lift it up. I'm like, girl, you bench press buildings. This should be easy for you to pick up this table and just set the fucking thing up. And I think Red Velvet came out there and set up the other one. And Red Velvet is another fantastic talent. I really like her a lot. She did well, but I think this was going to be more about Cargill, and Shaq. And like I said, Jade Cargill hit a really good-looking, very Arn Anderson-like spine buster. I can guarantee you he taught her how to do that. And the finish was pretty fucking good, too. We had Cody doing a high cross body over the top rope onto Shaq, who's standing on the ring apron, and they both crashed through. They both crashed through both of those tables that are set up on the outside of the ring, and they exploded. So Shaq comes out there, wrestling well, delivers a power bomb, goes through a table, explodes the table in a spectacular bump, and it was all just very good. That eliminates Cody and Shaq, leaving Cargill and Red Velvet in the ring, and Cargill hit Red Velvet with her finisher, which is basically like Beth Phoenix's Glam Slam. Puts Red Velvet down, pins her, gets the win, and that was an amazing job by everyone involved. That exceeded my expectations like tenfold. I thought this was going to be ugly as shit. I thought this was going to be the most sloppy, most disorganized, most inexperienced match you can have, and I'm like, Cody has got his work cut out for him to be able to try to manage all of this, and Jade Cargill and Shaq did a great job. I cannot believe Shaq had a good match. I just didn't see it coming. I don't know why WWE was so scared to pull the trigger on him. There was talk of Big Show versus Shaq at WrestleMania that one year. I think more than one WrestleMania, they had teased that. They've been face-to-face in the ring in WWE, I think at least once, maybe more than that. And now that Paul White is there, maybe that's something you can do in the future with Shaq and Paul White. I'm surprised this match didn't happen on the pay-per-view, but maybe with the Sting and Darby tag that, that's going to kind of be your feature attraction. Oh, Sting back in the ring. Maybe Shaq would take away from that. Or maybe, Shaq's on the TNT crew for the NBA. Maybe they wanted him. They'd rather him be on TNT just, for the ratings and stuff. So that was probably a good call there. And bravo to Shaq. Bravo to Jade Cargill. Red Velvet, you're fantastic. And Cody, nice job keeping all that together. I did not envy you in that position, and that match turned out to be really good. Really, really surprising there. So good stuff in that opener. This might have been my favorite match. FTR teaming up with Tully Blanchard. Tully Blanchard getting in the ring and wrestling for the first time in 30 years in a skin-tight bowling out uniform, but either way, he was in there, and he didn't even look that bad. They took on all 3 members of the Jurassic Express, and the biggest thing that popped me here is that Tully and FTR came out with J.J. Dillon. J.J. doesn't age either. Looks the exact same. Little slow, struggled to kind of move around out there because I do believe JJ is getting up there in age too, but he looked pretty much the exact same. And I was thinking a lot about Jim Crockett during this match, just seeing, because we knew what was going on with him and stuff, and seeing Tully out there and JJ. And I think I got word. I think I saw that JJ had passed away literally minutes after the shows went off the air or something like that. So maybe they had already known or something like that, but you could feel a presence of Jim Crockett in that match. And that was really cool to see, especially with Tully being in there and being in the ring and kind of doing some Tully stuff. That was just really crazy to see. In the end, we get this masked hoodie guy coming in and hitting Luchasaurus, who I think is draped over the second rope, hitting him with a camera. And then FTR and Tully hit Luchasaurus with a spike pile driver. Tully does the spiking, just like him and Arn would have done back when they were the Brainbusters or back in NWA. And they hit Luchasaurus, and a very well-protected Luchasaurus, don't forget. This guy doesn't usually take like pins like this. Took the spike pile driver, and I believe Tully even got the pin. So that was unbelievable. And the masked guy, or the hooded guy that interfered, turned out to be Shawn Spears. Dyed his hair blonde now. He's back in the fold. We have not seen him around in a while. At one point, it seemed like they were trying to find him a tag team partner, but that's been dropped. He's now back in with Tully, who has FTR with him, and that's 3. And I'm telling you, I would love to see a 4 horseman type of faction here, and I would love to see one more guy get added. And I think the best guy for that might be like Cody Rhodes or something. For Cody to come in there, you can reunite Tully and Arn, and they can kind of be like a dueling kind of manager thing. They can both play the role of JJ, because I think JJ might have just been a one-time deal. I can't see him really being on TV that much in the future, but it was really cool to see JJ there. But maybe in the future, you add somebody else, you do a 4 horseman type of thing. I'd love to see Cody go heel. I'd prefer Cody as a heel at this point because, he's a little bit self-indulgent sometimes, made a big deal about his, the gender reveal or something like that. Cody, I like Cody, but sometimes I think he thinks he's a little bit more of a bigger deal than he is. And, he really, kind of hypes himself up, and there's a lot of theatrics with him and his, and all that stuff. So he'd just be a better heel at this point, if you ask me. So if you did that and made him a heel, maybe you could eventually do something with Sting. There was that one promo when Sting came in, kind of put his arm around Cody. They planted something there whenever that was, weeks back. So maybe that's something they can revisit, especially if Cody challenges Darby again or something like that. Maybe that can kind of come full circle there. I don't know, but would love to see some sort of a faction be built, like some sort of a modern day 4 horsemen being built there. They've got a lot of the pieces of the puzzle together. They just need one more. We'll see. Maybe it'll be whoever the new signee is. We'll have to find out. The Jericho and MJF Revolution press conference was pretty funny. Jericho went on to tout his tag team title success, said that he's a 7-time tag team champion with partners like Dwayne Johnson and the newly acquired Paul White. We had several people coming up to ask questions. They had it set up kind of like they did I think it was the Orange Cassidy Jericho thing, the debate or whatever. It was kind of set up the same way. And a couple of the people that came out to ask questions, one was Conrad Thompson, and he asked when we might see Sammy Guevara back. And MJF says, "Oh my God, Turkey Tits, how can you say that? I don't want to hear his name again." So he called him Turkey Tits again. MJF called Conrad Turkey Tits in the very first ever AEW press conference, that outdoor job they did when they announced the company in Jacksonville. That's when I think Hangman Page came out there. We saw Pac that night, and that was Jericho's first, or that was the official announcement that Jericho would be coming in to AEW as well. And I remember when MJF came out there, he called Conrad Thompson turkey tits. So he said it again here. Jericho calls him a fathead, told him to get out of here. Don't even bring his name up again or whatever. So Sammy is going to have to turn up somewhere too. And as we'll talk about here in the predictions, I have a feeling we might see him at Revolution. So stay tuned for the predictions. I'll mention my idea for that in a minute. Eric Bischoff was another guy that came out to ask a question. So very cool to see Eric Bischoff on TNT. I think this is the third time he's been on Dynamite now. Love Bischoff. He asks if they know the condition of Papa Buck, the young Buck's dad, who they beat the shit out of a couple of weeks ago. Excuse me. And he asks, where does he basically insults Jericho, and he goes, you've made a lot of stupid decisions in your life, but where does motivating the young Bucks rank in your stupid decisions, in your list of stupid decisions or whatever? And that was hilarious. Jericho gets pissed and they say, we don't care. Shut your mouth or whatever it is. And help me out, because I don't have it in my notes. Did I miss something here? Did the Bucks come out and beat the hell out of them? Is that when they went through the tables and all that on the outside of the ring? Or was that last week? I don't have that written down, but I remember my issue with that. Yeah, it was this week. Was that, the Bucks, I think, come out there and kind of cut a promo a little bit, and the way they're talking to Jericho and MJF, they're not talking in a way that somebody should talk if your father has just gotten his ass kicked. I'm like, why are these guys not coming out there with baseball bats with nails sticking out of them and beating the holy hell out of Jericho, murdering these two guys for what they did to their dad, beating them up, blooding them up, putting them in the hospital? I'd be a little bit more pissed off than just coming out there and cutting a promo. But then finally the brawl did kick in, guys go through tables and yada yada. So that was all pretty fun in the end. And of course, we got the big tag team title match tomorrow with MJF and Jericho challenging for the tag titles. And I'm not confident that they're going to win those. We'll talk about that in a minute. Really cool exploding barbed wire death match hype package here, including that included and featured Onita, one of the originators of that. He's been in plenty of those matches, and he's had his ass blown up a few times in Japan. So that was kind of cool, getting the fans ready for what to expect here. Kenny Omega, by the way, on social media, I don't know if it was Instagram, Facebook, whatever, he basically posted the rules, an illustration of the rules, I suppose, of the death match, where he kind of hand drew everything. And he's got little pictures of Mox, where it says Mox with an arrow pointing to this guy with his head on fire and shit, and where the barbed wire is going to be and where the explosions are going to be in the C4 and all that stuff. So this thing's going to be gnarly. I hope nobody gets seriously injured here, and they're very careful with what they do tomorrow, but that's going to be good stuff, man. Omega and Moxley, we'll predict that in just 1 second. We had Ryo Mizunami, who defeated Nyla Rose in the finals of the Women's Eliminator Tournament. She will now face Shida tomorrow at the pay-per-view for the AEW title. I was not expecting her to really win this, and she did, so I'm happy for her. I don't think she's going to win tomorrow, but big tournament win there for Ryo Mizunami. Max Caster defeated 10 to earn a spot in the Revolution ladder match, so that field is pretty much set, minus one person. And in a great squash match, Pac and Ray Phoenix teamed up to just beat the absolute shit out of John Skyler and D3, and it was kind of a match that felt like, why did they even do this? It was just a squash. It was just like, oh my God, it was just all offense from Pac and Phoenix, but they look really good together as a tag team, and they might be my front runners now, and I'll tell you why for that Battle Royal tomorrow. And in the main event was Hangman Page and John Silver defeating Matt Hardy and Mark Quinn, and that was the deal where they did the big brawl to close the show and fade to black with everybody fighting in the ring. I like that a lot, and it was a main event I wasn't expecting to be the main event. If you would ask me, it would have been the Shaq match, but they did this one. This was fun. Hangman, of course, and Hardy are fighting tomorrow, and I thought it was a good way to close the show. So overall, this is a really fun, entertaining episode of Dynamite, and like I said, it had shades of Jim Crockett a little bit in there. We had Shaq in the ring, great debut for Jade Cargill, and a lot of good stuff on the show. So I think I enjoyed AEW a hair better than NXT this week, so I'm going to give the nod to them for the better show. And one thing that I didn't mention that we talked a lot about earlier on in the podcast was the big announcement coming up tomorrow at Revolution. Paul White was out there with Tony Schiavone saying that he's going to announce some big new AEW signee. If you are just joining us now in the chat, scroll back to the beginning of this podcast, and we talk about literally every possible name that we can think of. Everyone from Brock Lesnar to Kurt Angle to Punk to RVD to Batista to Christian to Bret Hart to Aleister Black to Jay White to Okada to Trish to Lita to Tessa to Ronda. There's lots of people it could potentially be, and we will find out who that is tomorrow. I don't really have a prediction on it because I don't fucking know. And speaking of predictions, let's get into it now. Revolution predictions. I'll go ahead and run through these predictions real quick. Then I'll knock out any final comments we have in the chat. And then I got to go to work. And I'll be back up here tomorrow. So let's start with the buy-in. We got 2 matches, I think, according to my notes here, scheduled for the buy-in. One is a women's tag team match pitting Thunder Rosa and Rio, taking on Britt Baker and Rebel, or Reba, or whatever her name is. I got to go Thunder Rosa and Rio here. That's who I think should win this and probably will, although I'm such a huge Britt Baker fan. I kind of feel like they should build the whole division around her heel persona. So them getting the win here would not disappoint me at all. But Thunder Rosa and Rio, I think, are a stronger team than Baker and Rebel. Rebel's a kind of a weak link in there, I think. So I'm going to go with the babyfaces to win that. The Casino Tag Team Battle Royal. This one could be interesting. I would not have picked this team prior to Wednesday. But since we saw Rey Fenix and Pac beat the shit out of those guys on Wednesday night, they're good together. They're a really good team. I still don't think you really need to break up the Lucha Brothers, but if you're going to put Phoenix and Pac together, 2/3 of the Death Triangle or whatever, this team is money, money, money. And if they do win this, that's who I'm predicting to win is Phoenix and Pac, because the reason I'm predicting them to win, because correct me if I'm wrong, the winners of this match get a tag team title shot. Is that right? Well, I think later on the Bucks are going to retain. I don't know how Jericho and MJF beat the shit out of someone's dad and then beat the team on top of that. So I think the Bucks are going to retain, and Phoenix and Pac versus the Bucks. Holy crap. I'm into that. Phoenix and Pac versus Jericho and MJF, but Phoenix and Pac versus Young Bucks, whole different story there. So I think just for the type of match we could get, I want Rey Fenix and Pac to win that Battle Royal. Main card, we have that Face of Revolution ladder match. We've got Penta, Lance Archer, Cody Rhodes, a newly heel-turned Scorpio Sky, and Max Caster, and one empty spot still left to fill. We don't know who that's going to be. We don't know if it's going to be Paul White's announcement or if it's going to be somebody else. Kurt Angle, like I said earlier on today, tweeted out a video of him lacing up his boots. Maybe he's just in this match. Maybe he comes out to be in this match, and maybe it has nothing to do with the Paul White signing. I don't know if these two things are related or not, or if it's going to be somebody current on the roster that they just bring out there. I'm not sure. But based on who it is, I'm not sure who's going to win this, because I would think that Cody Rhodes be on your odds-on favorite here. Cody is Cody, and him winning, and the winner of this Face of Revolution ladder match gets a TNT title shot. And we talked about that earlier on, with Cody potentially going heel, forming a 4 Horsemen faction or something like that, and, getting another shot at Darby Allin. And they would also have a chance to pay off that little tease they did with Cody and Sting all those weeks back when Sting first came in. So it feels like Cody would be the odds-on favorite here, but how do you not have Archer win? Lance Archer has just been super over. I don't want to see this guy losing any matches. Luckily, it's a ladder match. He ain't going to be pinned or anything. In terms of a one-on-one match or a singles match, I do not want to see Lance Archer get pinned or submitted in any type of thing. So I suppose here, if he gets put through a table, in the backstage area, and he's not anywhere near the ring or near the finish, I guess that's okay. He could technically lose here, but I'm having a hard time wondering how Cody or Archer lose this match. So if it's not one of them, I feel like it could be the mystery guy. I feel like the mystery guy is another one. So those are the 3 I think are the odds on favorite to win: Archer, Cody, or the new guy. But just for fun, I'm going to predict somebody crazy. I'm going to predict Penta. You know why? Because a Penta El Cerro and Darby Allin match for the TNT title would be unreal. So even though I think a lot of the focus is going to be on the mystery entrant, Cody and Archer, I think Penta winning this would be so fun. Give me that match with him and Darby. Yeah. So just for fun, I don't really even think this is going to happen. I just think I'd look really smart if I predict this right. So I'm predicting Penta to win that. It's kind of a random pick, but that's who I would like to see. It would be weird, though, if he won that and he also had Phoenix and Pac win the tag team battle royal. That might not work, but just the idea alone of a Penta and Darby Allin match, I'm into that. So I think that would be fun. So I'm picking him, even though I'm probably wrong. We have Miro and Kip teaming up to take on Orange Cassidy and Chuck Taylor. I don't think Chuck is Charles anymore. I think his run is over as the Butler, so he's back to being Chuck Taylor. I'm going to predict Orange Cassidy and Chuck Taylor. I don't like the Miro and Kip Sabian. I don't really like much of what Miro's done so far in AEW, and I really, really like Miro, and I want him to do better. The wedding was okay. Some of the stuff they've been doing is kind of fun. I did kind of like Charles and the Butler thing a little bit, but overall, I'm a little bit let down with Miro, what he's been doing so far in AEW. So I would love to see some sort of a miscommunication here, some sort of dissension to where Orange Cassidy, Chuck Taylor pick up the win. Chuck gets revenge on Miro for being his butler all that time, and then Miro destroys Kip or something like that and kind of goes off on his own. That's what I'd like to see. And I mentioned earlier about the possibility of maybe AEW doing some sort of a Millionaires Club type of thing with WWE guys like Jericho, like Big Show, with Miro, with Moxley, maybe whoever else they're bringing in tomorrow with the big signing, if it turns out to be Kurt Angle or somebody like that. I think that might be kind of fun to do, and where some of the younger AEW talent can rise up and battle those guys. I'd be into that, maybe led by somebody like a Cody or whoever, or even Sting bitch slapping him and bitch slapping one of them in the face. Welcome to the jungle, baby, or like you did Scott Hall all those years ago. So we'll see. Also, we've got Hangman Page taking on Matt Hardy. Very little to really discuss here. Hangman all the way. I think Page might win the AEW title this year. Beating Kenny Omega would be a big full circle moment for those two as well. So I kind of hope Hangman remains undefeated, easily disposes of Hardy here, and maybe he is the next opponent for Kenny Omega, because I'm probably spoiling who I'm picking in that match now, but there is talk that Moxley might go be with Renee for a little bit while she has the baby. So I'm not expecting him to win back the title here in the main event. So Hangman winning here could set up a title program with Omega down the line. That's what I'm hoping for. We have Hikaru Shida defending the AEW women's title against the winner of the Eliminator tournament, Ryo Mizunami. I'm picking Shida to retain here. I would like an upset, but again, I also really like Shida, and I think they should just continue to run with her until they have a better idea what they're doing here. We have the Young Bucks defending the AEW tag team titles against MJF and Jericho. Just talked about this a minute ago. I would go with the Bucks in this because of, number one, what happened to their dad, and how long can this shit between Jericho and MJF really last? They've already done the dinner debonair. They've had a couple of hiccups here. We've had some shady shit go down a couple weeks ago when MJF sent everybody, the cameramen, out of the room so he could have a private conversation. I feel like this is still all going to lead to Jericho being ousted from the inner circle at some point. I also think that Sammy Guevara could show up in this match and screw over MJF and Jericho. And a few weeks back, I mentioned the possibility of MJF and Sammy Guevara being in cahoots. This whole thing is a ruse. They're staging the issue between them and the hatred between them in a way to boot or remove Jericho from the group. I still think that would be a fun way to go, but in the short term, maybe Sammy can just come out and cost Jericho and MJF the match. That could happen. Big street fight. It's a good thing this is a street fight, not a straight-up tag, because these guys can be all over the place. Brian Cage, Ricky Starks taking on Sting and Darby Allin. Sting returns to wrestling here at the pay-per-view. This one is a lot like Hangman and Hardy. Sting and Darby all the way. No doubt about it. If Cage and Starks win, I'll be very surprised. And of course, Kenny Omega in the main event defending the AEW title against Jon Moxley in an exploding barbed wire death match. Hopefully nobody dies here, and I think that Kenny's going to retain somehow. Don't know if it's going to be with help. Don't know if he's going to do it legit. Don't know if Moxley's going to completely blow up, but this all adds fuel. We saw the Moxley promo a week or so ago where he kind of felt like it was maybe a little bit of a goodbye, not a permanent goodbye, but a short-term goodbye. We know Renee Young is pregnant. Don't know how far along at this point she is. I still feel like she's a ways off, but time flies, so who knows? But if you're ever going to take time off, blowing yourself up would be a good reason to take time off and selling the fact that you got blowed up. So maybe Moxley loses an arm or something and explodes, and it takes him a while to grow it back like Deadpool. So who knows? But I think that Kenny Omega is going to retain here, and Moxley will take some time off after that. And hopefully Kenny will go on to face Hangman Page some point in the future. But I think we'll probably get a very bloody, beaten, bruised, and bandaged Kenny Omega coming out on Dynamite next week to celebrate his victory over Mox and cut a promo, and maybe that's where you set up his next eventual program. So just to recap, I've got Thunder, Rosa, and Rio over Britt Baker and Reba, excuse me. I've got Phoenix and Pac winning the Casino Tag Team Battle Royal. I've got Penta And a dark horse pick to win the Face of the Revolution ladder match, I've got Orange Cassidy and Chuck Taylor over Kip and Miro, Hangman over Hardy, Shida over Mizunami, the Bucks over MJF and Jericho, Sting and Darby over Cage and Starks, and Kenny Omega retaining the heavyweight title in the main event over Jon Moxley. So there you go. And in the nick of time, I was able to get through this podcast because I got to leave in literally about 5 minutes. But before I do, I will answer some chat stuff and knock out some super chats that I think. Oh, thank you for getting to that Diet Water, whoever that Blake Lewis asshole is. Appreciate you taking care of him. Got to knock out these last couple of super chats before I'm on my way out. There's Spads Phoenix chiming in. Good to see you, buddy. Thanks for being here, and thanks for the 10. Just uploaded a pretty in-depth think piece on how to save NXT, basically a conceptual overhaul. I'd really love some feedback. It's my most recent vid pod. Thanks and big love to Greg and the chat. Yeah, go check out Spaz. He's got some ideas of how to maybe resurrect NXT. I think big changes are coming to NXT. I think they're about to move nights and add a new championship. And they got a lot of new faces in the brand as well. And the latest PC class that has just come in looks pretty damn stacked. And so you could have a lot of good talent coming into to the promotion, or to the brand, I should say, here in the upcoming weeks and months. So yeah, please go check out Spaz's YouTube channel and subscribe to him as well. He's a good dude. Zane, you got 5 more coming in from you. Appreciate that, Zane G. Congratulations to Kayla Braxton for her gender change. I don't think she changed genders. I think she just said she was bi or something. I don't even know why that's news. Don West is all elite. That would be. What if his big signing was Don West? Please, God, I don't need to hear that guy screaming into the microphone. And that's one thing. Somebody else mentioned Mauro Ranallo, and I love that. But Big Show just came in, or Paul White just came in to be an announcer. That's what he's going to be doing. I feel like they got a lot. They got Shivani, they got Ross, they got Excalibur, they have Big Show now. Is there room for Ranallo? I say there's not. So I don't think it's going to be Mauro Ranallo. And I certainly don't want it to be Don West. I don't need to hear his fucking voice. Might be fun to see Mike Tenay come in. Why not? But I don't think they need it right now. I think they got enough. They got enough going on. One more crazy name I'm going to throw out there for tomorrow. Just crazy. And the only reason it doesn't add up with Tony's favorite wrestler of all time, but it definitely adds up to the shocking in a good way. What about Jim Cornette? His whole entire shtick, his whole entire podcast is about how bad AEW sucks. But he himself has gone on records in shoot interviews saying that he would let a company put him in the middle of the ring and sodomize him with a rusty fishing knife for $1 million. So what if Tony Khan was like, hey, why don't you come in and let us beat the shit out of you for all the things you said about us on your podcast, and I'll pay you a couple $1 million. Cornette would do it. I don't think that's going to happen. But anyway, one final name I just thought I'd throw out there before we sign off. I'm going to be late for work, so I got to get out of here, guys. I'm sorry to cut this so short, but make sure you join us tomorrow night immediately following the pay-per-view. We will be up here for a full AEW Revolution review, and it's going to be a lot of fun. Did I just see another super pop in? Ha! Spaz Phoenix says Trump is all elite. That would be hilarious. I don't think he meets the weight requirements. I think he's too fat. So we'll see. Did you see him cheat at golf the other day? What a prick. So yeah, no, I don't think Trump is all elite, but that would be funny. He's been in WWE before. Why not? And that would be a Hall of Fame worthy person, right? Because he is in the Hall of Fame. So I guess technically it could work. And I do think the cons support him. So we'll see what happens tomorrow. Either way, it's going to be fun. I'm excited for tomorrow. Should be a fun night of wrestling. And let's just keep our fingers crossed that Moxley and Omega both survive. Thank you guys for hanging out today. I really appreciate it. Have a great rest of your Saturday night, and I will catch you immediately following Revolution tomorrow.